On the day of my zhuazhou, the hall was filled with gold and jade and brilliant treasures. My father laid out the imperial seal, wolf-tail brush, and golden abacus in a single line, and smiled for me to choose. The concubine of honor stood to the side, her fingernails digging into her palm, her gaze cold as a knife. I did not touch any of those things, but instead, it crawled to the foot of the emperor and grabbed his dragon robe with a small, bruised arm, crying hoarsely, "Concubine, please don't hit me. I won't bother you or the imperial uncle anymore." The whole hall fell into deadly silence at once. The smile on the emperor's face slowly faded. The imperial concubine collapsed to her knees with a thud, crying out her innocence. But in the next second, I pulled out a jade pendant from my bosom that should not have appeared on me. 01. On the day of the zircon-grabbing ceremony, the Xuanming Palace was laid with red felt. The imperial seal was placed in the very center, with wolf hair brush, a gold abacus, a short bow, and a tiger emblem nearby. Father held me, his laughter louder than the strings and pipes in the hall. "Zhao Zhao, whatever you like. Take it yourself. I am Zhao Zhao. The princess with the largest feast is the smallest. Also the first child to live to 1 year old since the emperor's enthronement. The entire hall of relatives is staring at me. Noble consort Shen Shuang stands at the emperor's right side, her sleeves hanging very low. She dressed simply today, but her forehead was adorned with a gold plaque. She looked at me, a smile at the corner of her lips, but no smile in her eyes. I know what she is waiting for me to crawl toward the jade seal. Wait for Father Emperor to praise me for having imperial bearing. Wait for her to turn and cry to the Empress Dowager, saying that I, a baby girl, am too grand-hearted and inauspicious. In the last life, she did exactly that. That day I understood nothing, and grabbed the jade seal. My father laughed heartily. That night she had the nurse carry me to the side palace and beat me on the arm. She said, "You little bastard. How dare you touch the nation's destiny of greatness?" At that time I cried until my throat went hoarse. My father came to see me again the next day. Xu Shuang said I was naughty at night and fell off the couch. Father Emperor believes. Later I fell into the water at 5. Was poisoned at 7. And sent for an arranged marriage at 9. When I died on a snowy night at the frontier town, I finally realized that Shen Shuang had long been involved with Prince Uncle Pei Xian. What she wants is not the position of the imperial concubine. She wants my father the emperor's life. And for Pei Xian to sit on the dragon throne. In this life, when I opened my eyes, I happened to be just before the night of grasping the ankh, the grab for objects tradition, or a metaphorical moment before choosing a year's grasp. I will not grasp the imperial jade seal again. At the end of the red carpet, my father emperor set me down. Go. I slowly crawled forward. People in the hall laughed. The princess looks clever. These eyes resemble His Majesty's. Look, look, she's going to take the jade seal. Shen Shuang's fingers sank into her palm. She is afraid I will take it. Yet she hopes I will take it. I climbed to the imperial seal and paused. His Majesty the Emperor bent down to look at me. Zhao Zhao likes this. I looked up. And I looked at him. Father Emperor's eyes were full of laughter. I suddenly turned around and crawled toward his boot. The hall's laughter diminished. I reached out and grabbed my Father Emperor's dragon robe, but my tiny hand couldn't hold on. So I pulled with all my strength. The hem of the dragon robe was pulled askew by me. My sleeve slid up as well. The small arms, full of bruises, were exposed under the lamp. The hall fell silent in an instant. I looked up, and tears burst forth in an instant. Father. The smile on the emperor's face froze. I cried until I was breathless. Your Majesty. Please don't hit me. I won't trouble you or His Majesty again. Silence. Even the wind chimes outside the hall are clear. My father looked down at my arm, and his gaze gradually darkened. Shen Shuang's face changed. She collapsed to her knees. Your Majesty. I am wronged. The princess is young. Surely the nursemaid taught her dirty words. I have never touched the princess. She cries so fast. Tears come when they will. In the previous life, She used these eyes to deceive the father emperor for more than 10 years. But I did not look at her. I only griped my father's dragon robe and extended the other hand into my bosom. That jade pendant pressed against me all night. It was dropped by Pei Xian when he left her chamber last night. Under the window. I had the little palace maid Ali pick it up and hide it in my dowdu. I took it out and handed it to Father Emperor. The jade pendant fell into his palm. On the white jade, the character Xian is carved. On the back, there is also a twin lotus blossoming. That is the jade worn by Prince Qi. Pei Xian, never leaving his body. Father Emperor's fingers tightened. Shen Shuang's cry ceased. In the clan members' seats, someone gasped. The emperor raised his eyes to look at her. Why is this thing on Zhao Zhao? Shen Shuang knelt on the ground. Her lips pale. I do not know. I choked back a sob and leaned into my father's embrace. The concubine says, the emperor's younger brother loves her. If Zhao Zhao cries, the emperor's younger brother won't love Zhao Zhao anymore. Shen Shuang suddenly looked up. You're talking nonsense. Father grabbed me and lifted me up in one move. When his hand touched my arm, there was a clear pause. A bruise was pressed against another bruise. Not thrown out by falling. It was squeezed out by human hands. Beaten out. Father Emperor's voice was very soft. Summon the imperial physician. Seal Xianming Hall. Today. No one in the hall is allowed to leave. Shen Shuang's body trembled. I lay on my father Emperor's shoulder, seeing her nails digging into the red felt. She still wants to cry. Still wants to argue. But the Emperor Father no longer looks at her. I buried my face against the Emperor Father's neck. My voice barely audible to him. Father. It hurts so much. Father Emperor tightened his hold on my arm. In the next moment, there came a sharp cry from the inner chambers of the palace. Your Majesty. His Highness Prince Qi requests an audience. He said he lost his personal jade pendant. 02. Qi Wang came too quickly. So fast that the blood in the hall hadn't yet dried from Shen Shuang's face when his men had already reached the hall doors. The emperor didn't let him in. He carried me back to the throne chair, his palm resting on my back. I could hear his heartbeat, one weightier than the last. The imperial physician knelt in front of me and rolled up my sleeve. There was another hush in the hall. Both of my forearms were covered with old wounds. Blue, purple, yellow. There were 2 more slender streaks of blood, as if they had been scratched by sharp fingernails. The imperial physician pressed his forehead to the ground. Your Majesty, the princess's wound did not form in a day. Shen Shuang immediately burst into tears. Your Majesty, I truly do not know. The princess has always been cared for by a nursemaid. I only occasionally go to take a look. If I tell even a half-truth, I am willing to suffer heavenly punishment. The Emperor Father looked down at me. All of a sudden, who hit you? I held his fingers. I am only 1 year old. I can't say too much, talk too much. And you're not like a child. I'm only pointing at Shen Shuang. Shen Shuang kneeled forward 2 steps. Your Majesty, the princess must have been instigated by someone. I manage the imperial harem. And I have offended many people. Someone plans to use the princess to harm me. She spoke quickly, every word choking with tears. The Empress Dowager frowned. Your Majesty, the child's words may not be reliable. In the harem's power struggles, you can't rely on a single piece of jade and a few words from a child. Shen Shuang heard the Empress Dowager speak. As if grasping a rope, she turned around and pounced toward the Empress Dowager. May Her Majesty the Empress Dowager be wise to discern. I have served His Majesty for many years. How could I dare to do such a thing? The Empress Dowager looked at me with a calm gaze. Zhao Zhao is still young. She calls the concubine today. And tomorrow she might speak of someone else. Father Emperor didn't say a word. He only placed the jade pendant on the imperial desk. The jade piece glowed with a cold light under the lamp. The voice of King Qi, Pei Xian, drifted in from outside the hall. Your Highness, I truly did lose the jade pendant. I do not know why it ended up on the little princess. Shen Shuang immediately looked up. Your Majesty has heard it. Even Prince Qi says he doesn't know. I lay in my father's embrace, slowly reaching my hand toward the red felt. On the red felt lay the golden abacus used for the zhou burying off the baby grasping year. I did not touch the abacus. I picked up the brush alongside and pounded it onto the imperial desk. Pa. Everyone in the hall looked at me. I spoke in a childish, milky voice. Right. Father Emperor lowered his head. What should I write about? Zhao Zhao. I nodded toward Shen Shuang. Then toward the outside of the hall. Concubine. Royal uncle. Letter. Shen Shuang's body stiffened. The emperor's gaze shifted over. What letter? I shrank my neck. Terrifyingly so. Under the pillow. The concubine said. Hide it under the pillow. Shen Shuang exclaimed sharply. No. Her cry was too urgent. So urgent that it wasn't just being wrongfully accused. It felt as if she had been pierced. A few clan members in the hall exchanged glances. The Empress Dowager's expression changed as well. Father Emperor raised his hand. Feng'an. The Grand Eunuch immediately stepped forward. Here is the servant. Take the imperial guards to Hanzhongpa. Lace. Search the concubine of honor's sleeping quarters. Shen Shuang pounced forward to grab His Majesty's robe hem. Your Majesty, I am the noble concubine. How could you publicly search for my servant in my bedchamber for the sake of a child? Father Emperor looked down at her. She is my daughter. You left her covered in injuries. I'm going to search your sleeping hall. And I'll also pick a day. Shen Shuang opened his mouth but made no sound. The Empress Dowager spoke in a deep voice. Emperor. Father Emperor did not turn back. If Empress Dowager wants to stop us, then let us go to Hanzhong Palace to see it together. Grand Empress Dowager's expression darkened. She hadn't had the Father Emperor oppose her like this for many years. Everyone in the palace watched. She could no longer speak for Shen Shuang. Feng'an and his men left. Prince Qi was still outside the hall. Father Emperor finally spoke. Let him come in. When Pei Xian entered the hall, his steps were steady. He wore an imperial dragon robe. His face bearing just the right touch of urgency. Your humble younger brother greets His Majesty the elder brother. The emperor threw the jade pendant at his feet. Yours. Pei Xian bent down to pick it up. Yes. Last night after the royal banquet at the Wangfu. He vanished. My younger brother just today heard that there is something going on in the palace. And only then did I learn that it was actually on the princess. After he finished speaking, he looked at me. Zhao Zhao is still young. He might be used by those with ulterior motives. I hug my father emperor's neck. Uncle, you're bad. Pei Xian's smile paused. Why does the princess say so? My eyes are red. You say, the emperor is dead. And Zhao Zhao is also dead. As soon as these words fell, someone in the hall dropped their cup to the ground. My father's face cooled completely. Pei Xian knelt down. Brother Emperor, your humble servant never spoke such treasonous words. The princess is young. How could she understand life and death? Obviously someone taught her. Shen Shuang also cried along. Your Majesty, someone has harmed this concubine and Prince Qi. The emperor looks at them. One cries. One knelt. One concubine and one prince. In a previous life, they were like this. Time and again splashing all the filth onto others. I bury my head in the emperor father's chest. But my hand quietly slips into the small cloth bag at my waist. There is one more thing there. Last night when Ali picked up the jade pendant for me, she also picked up a fragment of a tassel. Half of the red tassel on the jade pendant is torn. The other half remains on the sachet in Shen Shuangxiu's sleeve. I clenched that crimson spike, just about to take it out. Feng'an returned with the imperial guard. He knelt at the doorway of the main hall. His face pale. Your Majesty, under the pillow of the Hall of Incandescent Wisdom. A letter was found. And there is a man's crown. Shen Shuang slumped to the ground in a daze. The emperor's voice was lowered. Present it. Feng'an raised the tray with both hands. The letter on the tray was not sealed. The half-line of characters exposed was exactly Pei Xian's handwriting. Ting. Father Emperor reached out to grab it. Pei Xian suddenly stood up, sprinting toward the imperial desk. 03. Pei Xian pounced very quickly. The Imperial Guard responds more quickly, both blades unsheathed at the same time. Crossing in front of his chest. The edge presses against the python robe. The palace ladies gasp with screams. Father Emperor held me but did not move. He looked at Pei Xian. His eyes lacking any brotherly bond. What are you so anxious about? Pei Xian stood stiff before the blade. His hand was only half a chi away from the tray. If he moved a little further, he could grab that letter. Feng'an knelt on the ground. His forehead drenched in sweat. Father Emperor raised his hand. Bring it here. Feng'an immediately presented the letter. Father Emperor opened it. The hall was eerily quiet. I lie on his shoulder, able to see the words on the paper. Schwanger. Wait for the Empress Dowager's longevity banquet. The medicine goes into the golden lamp. Brother Imperial. If you falter, I will take over the palace gates. The child cannot be kept. She is like him. Living is a perpetual danger. The closing line bears no name. There is only a small seal with the character Xian. Father Emperor, after reading it, has veins swelling on the back of his hand. Shen Shuang knelt on the ground, no longer crying. She looked at that letter. Her gaze in turmoil. Pei Xian sneered coldly. Older brother. Can an anonymous letter condemn my younger brother? These characters can be imitated. This seal can also be forged. If someone takes my younger brother's jade pendant and copies my younger brother's handwriting, would they not be trying to drive a wedge between you and me, brothers? After he finished speaking, he looked at Shen Shuang again. Your Majesty, do you think so? Shen Shuang was pulled back to reality by his gaze. She bowed down immediately. Yes, Your Majesty. I do not recognize this letter. It must have been someone who slipped this into the Baozhang Palace. The Empress Dowager's face tightened. The Emperor. This matter is too important to rush. Prince Qi has spoken reasonably as well. Father did not reply. He looked down and asked me, what else does Shuozhao know? I looked at him. In my past life up to death, I finally understood how lonely my father was. He protected me left behind by my mother, but was killed by the very people he trusted most. In this life, I will hand the knife to his hands. I raise my tiny hand, pointing at Shen Shuang's waist. Fragrant. Shen Shuang instinctively presses the sachet. As soon as the move is made, everyone sees it. My father's voice was cold. Take it off. She shrank back. Your Majesty, this is my personal item. Take it, with a single word spoken. The guards moved forward. The maidservant did not dare touch the noble consort. Feng'an went personally and bent down to pull off the sachet. Shen Shuang's face turned unusually pale. The sachet was placed on the imperial desk. I slowly pulled out the broken stalk from the small cloth bag. Red thread. The cut edges neat and even. I placed the broken end beside the sachet. Two ends of the thread joined together to form a single line. The hall erupts in a burst of chatter. Pei Xian's face sank. Shen Shuang's lips trembled. What does this prove? There are plenty of red ears in the palace. I didn't speak. I just reached out and pushed the sachet toward my father. My father gave me a glance and carefully opened it himself. A very small slip of paper fell out of the sachet. A line of dates is written on the paper. Empress Dowager's longevity banquet. 3/4 into hour of the pig. Golden thimble. 2 more characters. Hands on. Father Emperor looked at those 2 characters and slowly looked up. Is this also a replica? Pei Xian didn't answer. Shen Shuang suddenly cried out. It's her. It's this child. She is not an ordinary child. She is only 1 year old. How could she say these things? How could she hold these? Your Majesty. She is illumined. With those words spoken, the hall grew even quieter. The Empress Dowager's eyes flickered. Shen Shuang seemed to finally find a way out. She crawled on her knees to the Empress Dowager. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager. The princess speaks foul words from childhood, hides Prince Qi's jade pendant, and takes out these things. If she were not demonic and evil, how could she be like this? I was harmed by her. The Emperor suddenly slammed his palm on the desk. Rude. I was startled into a tremble by that sound. Father immediately tightened his arm and coaxed me in a low voice. Zhao Zhao is not afraid. My tears fell. Empress says, Zhao Zhao isn't good. So burn her to death. This sentence is sharper than any evidence. My father's eyes lit with killing intent. The Empress Dowager spoke up. Emperor, the concubine's words may be harsh, but what was done today is truly not like that of a 1-year-old child. If this matter were to spread, it would throw the court into chaos. I look at the Empress Dowager. In the previous life, she favored Pei Xian, because Pei Xian was her biological son. The emperor was not. I cannot say this sentence now. I can only cry. Crying like a frightened child. Grandmother. Zhao Zhao is scared. Zhao Zhaoteng. I tugged my sleeve up again. Those wounds were laid bare for all to see. The Empress Dowager looked at my arm. And her words stuck. The clan members in the hall began to speak in whispers. Even in misfortune. It's been beaten to this. If a token was found in the noble concubine's palace, how can you still blame the child? King Qi snatched the token just now. Everyone saw it. Pei Xian swept a cool gaze over. The murmurs immediately quieted. Father Emperor stood up. Prince Qi is confined to the side palace. Imperial concubine. Imprison me in the Bureau of Prudence and Punishment. Shen Shuang suddenly looked up. The Bureau of Prudence and Punishment. Your Majesty, you intend to try this consort. The emperor hugged me and walked me outside. I will not only interrogate you, I will also open every warehouse in the Hanzhong Palace and examine every letter you have exchanged with the outside world all these years. Finally, a look appeared on Shen Shuang's face. She suddenly turned to Pei Xian. Prince, save me. Pei Xian's face changed. With that shout, the last layer of window paper was torn off. His Majesty the Emperor halted his steps. He looked back at her. Shen Shuang covered her mouth. It was already too late. At that moment, a young eunuch ran from the Hanzhong Palace, kneeling too hastily, his forehead bleeding from the impact. Your Majesty, in the hidden compartments of the Hanzhong Palace, a blood-stained garment was found. On the inside of the blood garment, the noble name of the former empress was embroidered. 04. Father Emperor stopped in front of the hall door. He held my arm very steadily, but I pressed against his chest and could hear the heartbeat, louder and louder with each beat. The little eunuch knelt on the ground, blood flowing down his nose from his forehead. Feng An's face was deathly pale, both hands cupping a lacquer box. When the lacquer box is opened, the scent in the hall seems pressed down by the smell of blood. Inside is an old garment. The fabric has long darkened, with large brown stains of blood congealing on the chest. Inside the collar, 2 small characters are embroidered with very fine silver thread. That is my mother's maiden name. Father looked at those 2 characters and was silent for a long time. I remember my mother. Actually, I have never really met her. In a previous life, everyone said that when Empress Dowager gave birth to me, she died from a hemorrhage. As my fate was thin, but I died at the border town. And Pei Xian came to see me once. That night he was drunk, treading through the snow into the broken tent, smiling and saying that I and mother were both eyesores. He said that if it hadn't been for that bowl of ginseng soup being served in time back then, why would Father Emperor have been willing to make Shen Shuang a concubine? Only then did I realize that all the hardships of my life had been written before I was born. Father Emperor reached out to touch that blood-stained robe. His fingertips had just fallen. When he drew back as if burned, the Empress Dowager's face also changed. She stared at the lacquer box. Her voice lowered to a whisper. How could such an old item still be in the palace? Her father looked up at her. Does Empress Dowager know this is an old item? The Empress Dowager's gaze froze. Shen Shuang had already been seized by the imperial guards, and upon hearing this, her body trembled. She hurriedly shook her head. Your Majesty, I do not know. I have never seen this thing before. Father Emperor looks at Feng'an. From where was it dug up? Feng'an kneels even lower. Return to your Majesty. Behind the Buddha shrine in Hanzhong Palace, the Buddha shrine has a hidden compartment, and beyond the hidden compartment there is another copper lock. The key is at the bottom layer of the noble consort's dressing box. Shen Shuang cried out in a sharp voice. not the queen consort. Someone is framing this humble one. Why should this humble one hide the blood-stained clothes of the late empress? She cried bitterly. But this time, no one dared to interrupt her. I lay on my father's shoulder and whispered. Mother is cold. Father looked down at me. I lifted my still bruised hand and pointed at Shen Shuang. She laughed. She said, Mother is gone. Father is hers. Shen Shuang suddenly struggled to get up, shut her mouth. When she shouted these words, even she stiffened. Everyone in the hall fixed their eyes on her. Her father's face was as cold as if covered with a layer of frost. Whose mouth do you want to shut? Shen Shuang's lips trembled. I am afraid she will spout nonsense. The Empress Dowager suddenly spoke. Emperor, what can a 1-year-old child remember? When the former queen passed away, she had just arrived. Father looked at the Empress Dowager. His voice very soft. And so Empress Dowager also thinks that she shouldn't know. The Empress Dowager fell silent. At this moment, footsteps sounded again from outside the hall. 2 imperial guard men dragged in an old woman. The old woman, with gray hair, wore a rough cloth gown from the laundry bureau, and with every step she took she coughed. When she entered the hall and saw the blood-stained clothes, she collapsed to the ground. Your Majesty, she cried until she nearly passed out. Father Emperor narrowed his eyes. Who are you? The old woman trembled as she reached into her bosom and drew out a silver hairpin. Snapped in two. Slave Mei Xin, formerly in the Empress Dowager's palace, in charge of clothing. Father suddenly stood upright. Weren't you martyred already? Xian raised her head. There was an old scar on her face running from behind her ear down to her neck. The servant is despicable. But I didn't die. Someone slit the slave woman's throat and threw her into a dry well. A slave crawled out from a pile of corpses and was sent to the laundry bureau to serve as a 10-year mute slave. Feng immediately said, Your Majesty. When the servant found her beside the well behind the Hall of Embracing Wisdom, she was crying while holding this half of the silver hairpin. My Emperor Father's gaze sank inch by inch. Can you still speak? A broken sound came from Xian's throat. She spoke slowly. But every word was clear. Yes. We servants have waited for this day for too long. Shen Shuang shook his head desperately. The Empress Dowager supported the back of the chair, her knuckles turning white. Xian sure knelt upright, looking at Father Emperor. Your Majesty. The former Empress did not die of hemorrhagic shock. That night, someone put medicine into the Queen Mother's nourishing soup. The Emperor's hands suddenly tightened. I hummed softly in pain, and he immediately loosened. But the bloody color in his eyes grew heavier. Xian sure glances at the Empress Dowager again. Her voice sounded like shards of porcelain scraping across the floor. The medicine was sent from Shokang Palace. The cup was handed over by Consort Shen herself. The door is guarded by King Qi. The hall erupted in a commotion. The Empress Dowager thundered. How brazen! Xian sure suddenly reached into her sleeve and pulled out a piece of black cloth. Holding it aloft with both hands, on the dark cloth, embroidered with the hidden pattern of Shokang Palace, she said, I, a servant, still have evidence. The person who distributed the medicine back then is still alive today. Just as Father Emperor was about to speak, a cry of agony suddenly echoed from outside the hall. In the next instant, a palace guard fell into the doorway, a short arrow protruding from his chest. With his last breath he shouted, Your Majesty, that man has been silenced. 05. The tail feathers of the short arrow were still trembling. Blood gushed from the chests of the Forbidden Army soldiers and flowed down the jade steps of Xianming Hall. The ladies-in-waiting stepped back in fright. My father, the Emperor, turned me around and spoke coldly. Protect the Emperor. The Forbidden Army immediately formed 2 ranks. The blade turned outward, its cold edge suppressing every breath inside the hall. Xian sure pounced on the guard and reached out to touch the short arrow. Feng hurriedly stopped her. Poisonous. The arrow was pitch black, and blood spattered on the ground, quickly spreading into a dark sheen. I stared at the arrow, a tightness locking my chest. In the previous life, before my father died, The imperial physician said it was a sudden illness attacking the heart, but later I saw his fingers peeking out from the coffin, with nails also of that same black. It turns out that poison had been used many times in the palace before. Father Emperor fixed his gaze on the short arrow. Where did it come from? A member of the guard knelt down. Reply to His Majesty. Behind the side hall's back window. The archer fled very quickly, leaving only one shoe behind. Father looks at Pei Xian. Pei Xian remained pinned under the blade, but the composure from before had vanished from his face. Big brother, you don't think my younger brother did it, do you? Father did not bother replying to him. He only asked, is everyone from Prince Qi's faction still outside the hall? Feng An's face changed. When King Qi entered the palace, he only brought 4 followers. Just now upon inspection, only 3 remain. Pei Xian immediately said, I, younger brother, do not know. Father Emperor finally laughed. That smile was so faint, harsher than not smiling. You know nothing at all. You know nothing about the jade pendant, the letters, the blood-stained clothes, or the short arrows either. I used to not know that the Prince Qi's residence bred nothing but ghosts. Pei Xian knelt on the ground, his forehead touching the earth. Your Imperial Highness, please discern clearly. The Empress Dowager spoke gravely. Emperor, seize the assassin first. This is not the time to interrogate the Prince of Qin. The Emperor turns his head to look at her. Mother Empress, are you afraid I will interrogate him roughly? The Dowager Empress's expression darkens. I am afraid you will lose your sense of propriety. I whispered in my father's embrace. Father. He lowered his head immediately. I held on to his clothes, stammering. Black shoes. Prince Regent's room. Pei Xian looked up, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. The princess even knows how to tie shoes. I tucked into my father's embrace, crying with my shoulders shaking. He treads the bright and clear. The brightness aches. My father's hand rested on my back, patting it gently, stroke after stroke. But his gaze had already fallen onto Pei Xian's boot. Pei Xian is wearing imperial court shoes today. The sole of the shoes is clean, but at the hem of his robe hanging at his waist, there is a bit of light gray mud. There is no mud like this in the Xianming Hall. The wall base outside the side hall's back window had only been laid with white sand soil. The Emperor raised his hand. Search the side hall. Pei Xian suddenly stood up. Imperial brother. The Imperial Guard's blade once again pressed down. A slit opened on the python-patterned chest of his armor. Father coldly looked at him. Do I grant you to stand? Pei Xian gritted his teeth and slowly knelt back down. Not long after, the searchers returned. They brought back a pair of black shoes. The sole is stained with white sandy soil. Inside the shoe tongue, the emblem of the Qi Wangfu is embroidered. Also brought back together was a half piece of paper that had been burned. Feng An kneels as he presents it. The Emperor took it, only glanced at it, and his face changed. There were a few characters left on the paper. The old man was not dead yet. Deal with it swiftly. The lower side pressed half of the Xian character seal. Pei Xian looked at that piece of paper and suddenly smiled. Brother Emperor, can such a torn scrap also be considered evidence? If I, your humble servant, truly intended to kill someone, why would I leave behind such a thing? The Xian clan suddenly lifted her head. She stared at Pei Xian, a laugh squeezing from her throat. You, my lord, are still the same as back then. Having done things, you always think other people's evidence isn't enough. Pei Xian narrowed his eyes. Do you recognize this prince? Xian slowly rolled up her sleeve. There is a burn on her wrist, in the shape of a lotus petal. Back then, the slave girl was dragged to the dry well, and the person who held her also wore a twin lotus ring on their hand. That prince's ring has been worn for many years. Pei Xian subconsciously lowered his hand. But it's already late. The Emperor father saw it. On his right-hand thumb, there was a jade ring being worn. The ring face was carved with a double lotus, exactly the same as the patterns on the back of the jade pendant. Shen Shuang suddenly collapsed to the ground. She looked at Pei Xian, her eyes full of resentment and fear. You said you wouldn't involve me. The voice was not loud. The hall is incredibly quiet. Everyone heard it. Pei Xian turned back abruptly. Shut up. Shen Shuang was frightened into trembling by his roar. The emperor father looked at the two of them. His gaze as if he wanted to nail them together. Connection. Involved. Do you have anything else? Why not say it all at once? Shen Shuang's lips trembled. She wanted to cry. But before the tears could fall, she glanced at the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager's gaze was chillingly cold. Shen Shuang immediately held her tongue. I witnessed this scene and understood it in my heart. Shen Shuang fears Pei Xian. But she fears the Empress Dowager even more. In the previous life, she never spoke ill of the Empress Dowager, not even half a sentence. Until her death. Because she knew that the Empress Dowager held something more deadly than private affections in her hands. The Emperor also saw it. He held me in his arms and walked step by step toward the Empress Dowager. Mother, do you know how the late Empress Dowager's ginseng soup tastes? The Empress Dowager looked straight at him. I don't know. Father Emperor asked again. Did King Qi have an affair with Consort Gui? Do you know? The Empress Dowager frowned. Emperor. You want to interrogate your ailing majesty for the sake of a mute slave and a child. Father did not back down. I am asking about mother, not Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager's expression finally darkened completely. She looked at me. That glance was like a venomous needle. I buried my face in my father's shoulder at once and whispered. Your imperial grandmother said that father isn't her biological son. Father's entire body froze. The Empress Dowager suddenly stood up. Who taught you that? I cry and shake my head. Granduncle says so. Granduncle says. The dragon throne was originally supposed to be his. Great-grandmother will help him take it back. Pei Xian's face changed suddenly. The prayer beads in the Empress Dowager's hand snapped with a crack. The beads rolled all over the floor. At that moment, urgent drumbeats rang from outside the hall. A sound after another. As if tapping on the heart. Feng'an rolled and crawled in. Your Majesty, Shokong Palace is leaking. There are people shouting inside the fire. Saying that the late emperor's will is hidden in the Empress Dowager's inner chamber. 06. The flames at Shokong Palace lit up half the sky. The palace servants outside the Xianming Hall were in a panic. The emperor did not go immediately. He held me and stood inside the palace gate. Eyeing the Empress Dowager coolly. For the first time, cracks appeared on the Empress Dowager's face. Emperor. The Shokong Palace enshrines the late emperor's tablet. Why don't you put out the fire? Emperor said. We must save the fire. The secret chamber must also be investigated. The Empress Dowager was enraged to the limit. You dare. His Majesty's voice wasn't loud. I am the emperor. In this world, there is nowhere I dare not investigate. The Dowager Empress's chest rose and fell. And her gaze swept from my face. I closed my eyes at once and pretended to cry. I know that the fire wasn't an accident. In the snowy night of the border town in the previous life, Pei Xian once said a word. He said that His Majesty could keep the throne only because Empress Dowager hid a will for him. I don't know whether the final edict is true or not. But I know that as long as the Empress Dowager still holds on to it, the emperor will be at their mercy. Now that Shokong Palace is on fire, it's most likely that they want to destroy the evidence. Or perhaps they want to use the fire to tempt the emperor to leave Xianming Hall. The emperor obviously thought of it too. He handed me over to Feng'an. Hold on to the princess tightly. I immediately grabbed his collar and refused to let go. Father. Don't go. There is an arrow. Father lowered his head to look at me. I looked at him with tears in my eyes. Black arrow. Pain. The emperor fell silent for a moment, bent down, and held me back into his arms. I will bring you along. The Empress Dowager sneered. Now even the emperor has to consult an infant for state affairs. Father Emperor didn't even look at her. At least she won't harm me. When the sentence fell, the Empress Dowager's face turned deathly pale. The imperial guards escorted Shen Shuang and Pei Xian toward Shokong Palace together. Shen Shuang walked with a stumble, his head adorned with a crooked golden hairpin. Pei Xian, on the other hand, was quiet. He was too quiet. Which felt chilling to the heart. As I passed by the palace alley, the night wind swept with ashes and slammed into me. I smelled a scent of tung oil. This fire burned too fast. Unlike a normal fire. Outside Shokong Palace. Palace servants run with water buckets. Flames lash from the window lattice of the side hall, lighting everyone's faces as if stained with blood. A eunuch elder knelt on the steps, crying out, "Your Majesty, the secret chamber door has been locked." Father asks, "Where is the key?" The eunuch trembled. "Only Her Majesty the Empress Dowager has it." Everyone looked at the Empress Dowager together. The Empress Dowager's face was expressionless. Your Imperial Majesty, do not know what secret chamber," the Emperor Father said. Smash! The Imperial Guard rushed in at once. Not long after, there came the sound of iron clashing against the door from inside. In a moment, 2 times, when the third fall descended. The Empress Dowager suddenly looked at Pei Xian. Pei Xian also glanced at her. My heart tightened. "Father Emperor." I had just spoken when one of the Imperial Guards behind Pei Xian suddenly drew his sword. He did not cut toward the Father Emperor. He swung at the companion who was Esco, rooting Pei Xian. In the instant the blood spurts out. Pei Xian breaks free from restraint and slams the knife back with his reverse hand. The change was too sudden. The palace attendants screamed and scattered. Father Emperor, after holding me, steps back half a pace. And the guards immediately shield me. Pei Xian stood with a knife in front of the firelight. His face's deference at last completely vanished. Brother Emperor. At this point, why go on with the inquiry, if you keep investigating? Neither you nor I will look good as brothers. Father Empress says coldly, "You are not worthy to call me brother." Pei Xian laughed. "Do you think you are the Emperor's chosen prince? If it weren't for her burning that old edict for you, you wouldn't even have the qualifications to stand here today and judge me." The Empress Dowager spoke sternly. Silence. Pei Xian acted as if he had gone mad. "Mother, what are you still pretending for now? You have favored him for 20 years. Not just because you were afraid the world would know, but because you swapped the will back then and propelled the most obedient puppet to power." Father's face gradually paled. But the hand he holds me with remains steady. "So you intend to kill me?" Pei Xian raised his knife. His eyes filled with malice. "This dragon throne was always meant to be mine. The late emperor favored me. You were the one who took my things." The Empress Dowager closed her eyes. When she opened them again, only coldness remained in her gaze. "Xianer, stop talking." This shout of Xianer made everyone in the room freeze. The emperor looked at the Empress Dowager as if for the first time. "I have finally confirmed as well. Pei Xian is not an ordinary prince. He is the Empress Dowager's own son. No wonder after the previous life's emperor or died, the Empress Dowager could unhesitatingly support him to ascend the throne." The door to the secret chamber was finally smashed open. Dark smoke billowed up. A forbidden army soldier charged out, cradling an iron box in his arms. "Your Majesty, we found it." Before the words finished, a short arrow shot out from the flames. The emperor turned sideways to shield me. The arrow skimmed past his shoulder and pierced into the pillar behind him. The tail of the arrow had a piece of yellow silk tied to it. Feng charged forward, tore off the yellow silk, and dropped to his knees after only a glance. "Your Majesty." Above it reads, "The former emperor and theft Prince Chia's heir." Pei Xian looked up and laughed loudly. "Older brother, did you see that? You have held the realm for so many years. Yet you lack the proper authority and your words do not carry weight." The Empress Dowager gazed at her father emperor and finally spoke. "Emperor, hand over Zhao Zhao. Write another abdication edict. I can keep you respectable. I feel cold all over." But Father Emperor suddenly laughed. He held me, then raised his hand and pulled out the short arrow from the pillar. "The arrow poison hasn't dried yet." Emperor looks at the Empress Dowager. "Mother, you're anxious. If the late edict is true, why would you set fire?" Pei Xian's smile paused. At this moment, a thunderous shout of death suddenly rang from the direction of the palace gate. A guard covered in blood rushed through the flames and knelt before his father. "Your Majesty, Lin Army's 3rd Battalion rebelled. They are carrying the banner of Prince Qi and have already charged into the palace gates." 07. The sound of slaughter rose in waves outside the palace gates. The firelight reflected off the glazed tiles of Shokang Palace, as if the entire palace city had been soaked in blood. My father held me in his arms, standing on the steps without retreat. A short arrow scraped his shoulder, tearing the fabric open, and a wound of red oozed out. I reached out to press it. "Father Emperor loves me." The emperor looked down at me, and the coldness in his eyes faded for a moment. "It doesn't hurt." He handed me to Feng Anhui. This time, I didn't grab him again, because I know that next he will grip the knife. Feng An held me back behind the pillar, his hands trembling violently. The Empress Dowager saw the torches toward the palace gate, and the panic on her face gradually steadied into calm. Pei Xian also smiled. "Brother Emperor, do you still want to investigate? Now the palace gates are in my hands. The 3 regiments of the Imperial Guard are in my hands. With this little guard around you, can they protect you for a moment? Or for a lifetime?" The emperor looks at him. "You think I am unprepared?" A smile flickers on Pei Xian's face. The Dowager Empress's brow twitched. Father Emperor raised his hand, took off the jade badge at his waist, and tossed it to the commander beside him. "Open the gate of heaven. Let the Northern Yamen army enter the palace." Pei Xian suddenly looked up. "Isn't the Northern Yamen army outside the city's great camp?" Father Emperor spoke coldly. "If I let you know where the troops are, you would have died by my hand long ago." The commander stepped forward to take the placard. The Empress Dowager suddenly shouted sternly, "Stop him!" 2 palace maids suddenly rose from the crowd. They hid short blades in their sleeves and plunged toward the commander. The blade flashed, and suddenly several black-armored guards dropped from the eaves of the hall. They drew their swords silently and knocked the 2 palace maids to the ground. Blood splashed on the steps. Pei Xian's face finally changed. Father looks toward the Empress Dowager. "How many spies you placed around me by your Majesty's side all these years?" "I have kept count. I do not move, because I still cherish old feelings. But you should not move." "Zhao Zhao." The Empress Dowager's expression turned extremely grim. She looked at me. "A child. You've managed to bring me to this point. Father, you did not turn around. It wasn't her who pushed me to this point. It was you who forced me to wake up." I snuggled into Feng Anhuai's arms, watching Pei Xian's hand slowly move toward the cuff. There was something hidden there. In a previous life I had seen it. He kept a tiny copper whistle in his sleeve, capable of summoning a close-quarters dead soldier. I burst into tears at once. "Father, the birds are chirping. Father." You side-eyed looked aside. Pei Xian's fingertips had already touched the sleeve. The Father Emperor drew the guard's waist sword and threw it with the opposite hand. The hilt struck heavily on Pei Xian's wrist. A copper whistle fell to the ground, rolling into the flames. The Emperor's voice was like ice. "Chop off his hands." Pei Xian's face changed dramatically. "You dare!" The Imperial Guards advance. The Empress Dowager roared. "Who dares lay a hand on him?" But the Imperial Guards only listened to the Father Emperor. Before the blade fell, the rebels behind Pei Xian finally reached outside Shokang Palace. A crowd of dark silhouettes charged through the palace gates. The flag of the Qi prince's residence billowed and twisted in the flames. Pei Xian suddenly laughed aloud. "Brother, you are one step too late. Tonight in this palace, who lives and who dies is not up to you to decide." The rebels rise with bows and crossbows. The arrows point at the stairs. Feng An pulls me back, and my back hits the railing column. I saw the Empress Dowager slowly raise her hand. She was about to give the order, but the Emperor suddenly turned around and looked at the side hall of Shokang Palace burning. There, in the thick smoke, half a giant bell revealed itself. He spoke in a low voice. "Hit the bell." Feng An froze. In the next moment, the black armor guards charged into the flames. The bell rang out thunderously. 1 note, 2 notes, 3 notes. Deep inside the palace, as if a sleeping giant were being awakened. Pei Xian's smile stiffened on his face. Suddenly, a neat clatter of hoofbeats rang out from afar. It is not a single unit, but 1,000 armies and 10,000 horses. 08. The hoofbeats drowned out the sound of the flames. A heavy horn blast rolled from beyond the palace walls. Like thunder sweeping in from the horizon, the rebel lines wavered. Someone looks back. Someone tightens the bow and crossbow. Pei Xian's face turned grim, but he still forced a smile, making a show of bluff. The northern Yamen troops have arrived. But they cannot enter the inner city. Father Emperor looked at him. Who told you that only the northern Yamen troops? Pei Xian's eyes paused. A loud thundering crash suddenly sounded from the gates of the palace, as if an entire vermilion door was smashed open by a hammer. Immediately afterwards, shouts of battle rolled back. No longer the cries of the rebels, but the guards shouted in unison, "Protect the sovereign! Protect the sovereign!" Pei Xian finally changed his expression. The Empress Dowager also suddenly steadied herself with the help of a nearby maid. "How is that POS? Sibyl?" The Emperor Father spoke softly. "There are people of yours in the third camp. And there are people of mine as well. Tell them to raise the banners tonight. And I will have them reveal themselves tonight. Save the trouble of checking one by one." My chest warmed at hearing it. In the previous life, the Emperor Father wasn't not clever. He was just too trusting of them. In this life, I tore open the first breach. Then he tightened the net himself. The rebels still want to shoot an arrow. Father Emperor raised his hand. Black armored guards appeared from the roof ridge at the same time. Bows and crossbows aimed. The front line of rebels collapsed in a single sweep. Arrow rain fell brushing past Pei Xian's side. He was forced to retreat. And a look of humiliation finally appeared in his eyes. Shen Shuang suddenly cried and crawled toward His Majesty the Emperor. "Your Majesty, I have something to say." Pei Xian roared. "How dare you?" Shen Shuang trembled as he roared at her. But when she saw the corpse at the foot of the stairs, and the increasingly approaching imperial guards outside, she finally gritted her teeth and looked up. "Your Majesty." It was Prince Qi who forced this servant. That bowl of ginseng soup back then. This servant only handed it over. The medicine is not under my control. The former Empress Dowager's bloodied clothes were also hidden by this Dowager Empress for me. I'm only afraid of death. The Empress Dowager said sternly. "You wench." Shen Shuang sobbed on the ground. "The Empress Dowager holds the lives of my entire clan in her hands. I dare not disobey." My father looked at her. And there was not a trace of emotion in his eyes. "So you hit Zhao Zhao. So you want her dead." Shen Shuang's cry choked. "I'm afraid. She looks too much like the former empress. Your Majesty, every time you look at her, I fear you will recall the past." I lay on Feng Anhuai's chest, watching her coldly. She is afraid not of Father Emperor remembering her mother. What she fears is the evil she has done, which will eventually rise from the soil. The Xian family suddenly pounced, grabbing Shen Shuangyi by the hem. "Your Majesty, that night you gave birth, you cried like this too. You cried and claimed you were innocent. But you have empty medicine packets hidden in your sleeves." Shen Shuang kicked her hard. "Get lost." Xian sure was knocked over, but from the hem of her garment she ripped off a corner of the lining. The lining's interlayer ripped open, and a tiny gold key fell out. The Empress Dowager's face suddenly whitened. Father Emperor looked at that key. "What is this?" Shen Shuang's lips trembled, unable to speak. Xian sure spoke in a tremulous voice. "Shokang Palace has a secret chamber. And there is a second layer. This key opens the copper box behind the secret wall." The Empress Dowager suddenly turned and walked away. The Emperor's father spoke coldly. "Stop the Empress Dowager." The Imperial Guards move forward. The Empress Dowager raises her hand and slaps the foremost of the Imperial Guards. "Who dares to challenge me?" Father steps down the steps one by one. The firelight lit up his face, as if cold jade split apart. "From today, Shokang Palace seals the palace. The Empress Dowager may not step out, unless there is an imperial decree." The Empress Dowager stared at him in disbelief. Are you going to imprison me? Father Emperor said. I intend to interrogate you. With those words, the whole courtyard fell silent. From a distance at the palace gate, the northern Yamen army had already charged in. The rebels are retreating bit by bit. Pei Xian suddenly grabbed a handful of crossbow from the ground. The arrow pointing directly at me. Everyone, don't move. Feng hugged me and froze. His Majesty's pupils constricted. Pei Xian smiled grimly. Big brother Emperor, aren't you the one who loves her the most? Exchange her to get me out of the palace. Otherwise I'll take her to see her ill-fated mother first. 09. The crossbow bolt aimed at my Feng was so frightened that he knelt on the ground, still clutching me tightly and not daring to let go. My emperor stands at the foot of the stairs, his face devoid of any blood. Pei Xian, if you dare to hurt her, I will grant you a death so complete that there will be no corpse left. Pei Xian laughed even more cruelly. What am I no longer afraid of now? If I lose, I die. Only by winning do I have any chance to live. He moved closer step by step. The bowstrings taut. Creaking sound was very soft, yet it sounded as if pressed against my ear. I look at his blood-stained sleeve. His wrist was struck by the knife handle, and his fingertips were actually trembling. Just drag it a little longer. The outer guards can advance. But he's almost crazy too. The hardest to guard against are the mad. I suddenly started crying. Your Highness, Zhao Zhao no longer hurts. Pei Xian paused his steps. I stretched out my small hand, wanting him to hug me. Zhao Zhao will go with you, Father Emperor immediately said. Zhao Zhao. I turn back to look at the Emperor, and large tears fall in big chunks. Father, don't hurt. Pei Xian stared at me. He is suspicious and wary, but he also knows that a 1-year-old child cannot escape. He sneered and reached out to grab me. Feng refuses to let go. Pei Xian pulls the bow and arrow to one side, pressing against Feng's throat. Let go. Feng's face is streaming with tears, but he can only slowly loosen his grip. I was dragged over by Pei Xian. His hands were very cold, and the strength he used pinched my waist painfully. I endured it without crying. He stood in front of me, blocking me with his body. The bow still pressed against my head. The Emperor's gaze looked like it had been cut open by a knife. Let her go. Pei Xian stepped back. Prepare the horse. Open Xihua Gate. Give me another squad of Imperial Guards to escort. The Emperor did not move. Pei Xian pressed the crossbow closer to my forehead. Hurry up. I winced in pain as I breathed in, and a red patch immediately appeared on my forehead. Father Emperor closed his eyes. Do as he says. The Empress Dowager suddenly spoke from the side. Xianer, take me with you. Pei Xian glanced at her and actually laughed. Mother, you staying here is more useful than following me. The Empress Dowager's face instantly turned pale. She finally understood that her most beloved son would be the one to leave her to block the knife. Father Emperor looked at her, his eyes devoid of sympathy. Pei Xian dragged me back toward the palace corridor. The flames along the way had not died down, and ashes fell onto my face. My small hand drooped at his sleeve, just as I passed by the big clock. I quietly dropped the torn red spike hidden in my palm. The red spike fell beside the clock pedestal. Father Emperor saw it. His gaze moved slightly. I immediately cried louder. Granduncle, Zaya's hockey is afraid of the dark. Pei Xian was impatient. Shut up. I hiccuped and said. Zhao Zhao knows the door. There is a small door. Pei Xian's steps came to a halt. What small gate? I point to behind Shokan Palace. The Empress Dowager passed by. It's dark. No need to open the big gate. The Empress Dowager suddenly looked up. Don't listen to her nonsense. Pei Xian's heart already moved. There must be an ambush outside Xihua Gate. If there really were a secret passage, he could evade the Emperor. He pins me down, questioning the Empress Dowager. Where is the secret passage? The Empress Dowager grits her teeth and refuses to answer. Pei Xian Nujian turns the bow arrow, aiming at the old palace maid beside the Empress Dowager. Speak. The old palace maid was so frightened that she collapsed. The Empress Dowager scolded. Xiener. Pei Xian said coldly. Mother Empress. I want to live. The Empress Dowager looked at him and suddenly laughed. That laugh was full of desolation. Behind the Buddha hall. In the well. Third blue brick of the well wall. Pei Xian immediately pulled me toward the Buddha hall. Father didn't pursue closely. Only sent people to follow at a distance. I lay in the crook of Pei Xian's arm. My heart beating so fast it almost pounded through my chest. In the previous life I didn't know about this secret passage. I only gambled. Someone like Empress Dowager Dude is surely not someone who would leave no escape for herself. The well behind the Buddhist hall had been scorched black. By smoke. Pei Xian ordered someone to move the stone lid. There really is wind in the well. Just as his eyes brimmed with wild joy, a soft sound suddenly came from below the well. As if someone inside was drawing a blade. Pei Xian's expression changed. In the next moment, the torch at the bottom of the well lit up. A squad of black-armored guards rose up from the depths of the secret passage. The leader spoke loudly. Your Majesty. The secret passage has been sealed. Pei Xian suddenly turned around. Father Emperor is already standing 3 zhang behind him. In his hand he held a blood-red confession taken from the second floor of the secret chamber. The Empress Dowager's name is written at the very top. 10. The test. Imony in the Emperor's hand rustles in the night wind. That paper is not white. It is old silk. The corners were yellowed. But the handwriting had turned black with blood. Pei Xian held me as we stood beside the wellhead. With no way to retreat. Under the well. Black-armored guards carried a crossbow. And the Imperial guards outside formed a wall of blades. The crossbow in his hand still pressed against my temple. But his breathing was disordered. Father Emperor looked at him. Word by word said. Let go of Zhao Zhao. Pei Xian stared at the confession. The madness in his eyes suppressed by fear for a moment. What is that? Father Emperor did not answer. He handed the testimony to Feng'an. Feng'an only glanced at 2 lines. And his face turned pale as paper. Your Majesty. It says here that the Empress Dowager bribed the midwife years ago and swapped the prince roster in the palace. King Qi was not the person favored by the former emperor. He is only the child secretly kept by the Empress Dowager outside Shokang Palace. The Empress Dowager swayed. She grabbed the railing of the well. Her fingernails almost broke. Pei Xian turned around abruptly. You're talking nonsense. Feng'an knelt down. His voice trembling. There are blood stains of the head scribe female official behind the testimony from that year. There is another half-volume of jade records in the secret chamber. King Qi's birth date is 3 months earlier than what is recorded in the palace archives. The whole courtyard buzzed with uproar. The blood in Pei Xian's face gradually drained away. He is not the prince who had his throne seized. Even contesting the right to that chair was fake. I was almost strangled to the point of suffocation by him. But I still raised my eyes to look at the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager's gaze was more vicious than fire. She suddenly smiled. False. All of it is fake. You, Emperor. In order to sit firmly on the throne. Even your mourning mother you will slander. Father Emperor spoke coldly. Whether it is slander. The 3 departments will judge. The Empress Dowager turned to Pei Xian. Xiener. Don't believe it. That confession is forged by them. Pei Xian looked at her. You tell me then. What is the exact date of my birth? The Empress Dowager's lips moved. But she did not answer immediately. Only for a moment. Pei Xian's hand trembled more violently. The arrowhead scraped against my temple. A trace of warmth slid down along my cheek. His Majesty's pupils suddenly constricted. Pei Xian. If you move her even a fraction. I will have the entire Qi Wang family buried with her. Pei Xian seemed to hear some joke. All my family. What else do I have to take pride in? Mother deceives me. Shen Shuang sells me out. And His Majesty the Emperor wants to kill me. I only have her left. He lowered his head and looked at me. That look was cold and crazy. Big brother. You love her. Then she is my last path. I suddenly stretched out my little hand and touched the twin lotus jade pendant on his chest. He stiffened. I speak in a childish voice. Emperor uncle. Your Highness says you love her the most. You will take her away. Pei Xian subconsciously looked at Shen Shuang. Shen Shuang, who was pressed at the steps, raised her head immediately upon hearing this. Your Highness, save me. Her voice was extremely frail, as if countless times in a past life she had cried in her father emperor's arms. But only disdain remained in Pei Xian's eyes. Shut up. Shen Shuang froze. I continued to hiccup. The imperial concubine's belly holds the little brother of the UNC. Lu of the emperor. The wind suddenly fell silent. Shen Shuang's face changed drastically. Pei Xian froze solid. The emperor's gaze fell on Shen Shuang's abdomen. Shen Shuang shook her head desperately. No, Your Majesty. No. I actually don't know whether she is pregnant now. In my previous life, before I was sent away for the marriage alliance, I had heard palace servants whisper that Shen Shuang had a male fetus miscarriage. And the Empress Dowager kept the news secret. The timing was precisely around the Empress Dowager's longevity banquet. In this life I'm only gambling. I'm betting on more than just the dirt between them. There's far more than meets the eye. Father Emperor raised his hand, sending for a female doctor. Shen Shuang struggled as if driven mad. Stop. Your Majesty. I am innocent. The more she fears, the more it shows that I guessed right. Pei Xian's face flickered between pale and white. It's not that he doesn't care about Shen Shuang. What he cares about is that if Shen Shuang truly has his blood in her womb, it would mean another death sentence. He looked at the Empress Dowager, as if seeking one last explanation. But the Empress Dowager avoided his gaze. At that moment, the black-armored guards underground suddenly cried out in unison. Your Majesty. Someone is in the secret passage. The Emperor raised his eyes. The sound of weapons clashing echoed from the bottom of the well. Then, a man in black darted out of the well mouth, brandishing a short knife aimed at the Emperor. The Imperial Guard stepped in. The blades met, sparks flying everywhere. Pei Xian seized the confusion and suddenly held me, leaping toward the edge of the well. He actually intends to jump into the well. Father rushed forward in one step. I saw the blood-soaked gash on his shoulder split open again, glaring red. As Pei Xian held me as we plummeted downward, I bit into the back of his hand. He flinched in pain for a moment. My father rushed to the wellhead and grabbed hold of my swaddling. The fabric tore. My half-body hung over the well, and beneath my feet was bottomless darkness. Pei Xian reached up from below and grabbed my leg, his voice like that of a malevolent spirit. Older brother, do you want her? Or do you want me to die? 11. My leg was pinched painfully by Pei Xian. My father gripped the hand that supported me in swaddling, veins protruding from the force. The edge of the well stone wore down his palm, and blood dripped onto my face. I tilt my head and look at him. Father, let go. Father Emperor's eyes flashed with a tremor, bright and clear. You may not speak. I cried and shook my head. Father loves you. Pei Xian laughed from underground. Such a sensible child. Big brother. She asked you to let go. If you let go, I'll take her away. The Emperor father gritted his teeth, reaching with the other hand to grab my arm. I know he won't let go. In the last life I waited for so long. I never waited for this hand. In this life, he finally holds on to me. The black-armored guard underground is entangled by a person in dark clothes in the secret passage and cannot come up for a while. Outside, the Imperial Guards are afraid of harming me, and they do not dare to shoot arrows rashly. The Empress Dowager stands in the firelight and suddenly speaks. Emperor, if you write a abdication edict now, I, your mourning mother, will return your daughter to you through Xianer. Father Emperor didn't even spare her a glance. Feng'an pounced to the edge of the well. Your servant is here. Chop the well fence. Everyone was stunned. Feng'an quickly understood, signaling the Imperial Guards to swing their blades at the wooden gallows beside the stone well. Rope made of thick hemp was coiled around the gallows. That is for ordinary water buckets. When the wooden rack broke, the hemp rope was grasped by the Emperor with a single hand. He looped the rope around his wrist, then threw it to the Imperial Guards. Hold on. The Imperial Guards all strained with effort. With the help of the rope, The emperor leaned down from the well mouth and finally grabbed my little arm. Pain made my vision go black. Pei Xian was also pulled up by an inch. He cursed loudly, and the blade slipped from his sleeve, stabbing at my leg. Ming's emperor's eyes flashed with killing intent. Hit his shoulder. The black-armored guard underground immediately adjusted their angle. An arrow from a crossbow brushed against my swaddling clothes and shot into Pei Xian's right shoulder. He grunted, and his fingers loosened. Father Emperor suddenly dragged me up and tightly held me in his arms. I was trembling all over. He is also trembling. Yet his voice remains steady. Zhao Zhao isn't afraid. In the next moment, the sound of a heavy object striking the ground came from underground. Pei Xian fell into the secret passage. But he did not die. Someone deeper in the secret passage caught him. The man in black protected him as they retreated further. Father Emperor picked me up and stood up. Seal well. Alive. You must see a person. Dead. You must see a body. The black-armored guards immediately descended into the well to pursue. The Empress Dowager saw Pei Xian flee into the secret passage and suddenly turned around, intending to run toward the Buddha Hall. Xianshi pounced and clasped her legs. Where do you think you're going? Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager looked down at her, her eyes full of disgust. Lowly slave. She kicked Xian's chest with her foot. Xian was kicked to spit blood. Yet she refused to let go. The slave has guarded the late Empress Consort's grievances for 10 years. Today, even if I must die, I will watch you descend into hell. My father Emperor said coldly. Take down the Empress Dowager. This time, no one hesitated again. The Imperial Guard stepped forward, holding the Empress Dowager's arms. The Empress Dowager stared in disbelief at those knives. I am the Empress Dowager. My father held me and walked to her. From the night you killed the former Empress. You have not deserved it. The Empress Dowager suddenly burst into laughter. Kill her. She deserves to die. A queen consort from a humble background. How dare she oppress me? She gave birth to a daughter. Yet the emperor still treated her as a treasure. I am merely the one who clears the way for you, said the lamenting mother. The emperor's face was extremely cold. She has never been my obstacle. You are the one. The Empress Dowager's smile froze. She looked at her father emperor, a hint of panic appearing in her eyes for the first time. Shen Shuang was pressed by the female doctor to take a pulse in the corridor. Not long after, the female doctor knelt down, in a very soft voice. Your Majesty. The consort has been pregnant for nearly 2 months. The courtyard fell into a dead silence. Shen Shuang lay paralyzed on the ground, her lips pale and bloodless. Your Majesty did not get angry. He simply looked at her quietly. That calm is more terrifying than thunder. Shen Shuang climbed to his feet. Your Majesty. I am forced to do this. It is King Qi who forces me. My heart is only for your Majesty. I lay in my father's embrace and gently tugged at his clothes. She beat Zhao Zhao. My father emperor lowered his head and stroked my hair. I remember. Shen Shuang's sobbing froze for a moment. Their emperor turned around and gave the order. Shen Shuang is imprisoned in the heavenly prison. The filth within the womb shall be kept for now. After the case is all examined, deal with them together. Shen Shuang screamed. Your Majesty, that is also a life. Father Emperor cast a cold eye at her. Have you ever kept a bright fate? She felt as if a cold hand pressed against her throat, and she could no longer cry out. At that moment, the pursuing soldiers underground suddenly sent urgent reports. Your Majesty, the secret passage ends at an old water channel outside the palace. The King Qi was taken away by someone. The person who attended uses the Shen family token. Shen Shuang suddenly looked up. My emperor also lowly looked at her. Shen Shuang shook her head, tears welling up. Not me. But as soon as she finished speaking, another horseman charged toward the palace gates. A man came forward, collapsed to his knees, covered in blood and mud. Your Majesty, the head of the Shen family led private soldiers to surround the Ministry of Justice. They say that the concubine is bewitched by a demon child and wants to invite the Empress Dowager to leave the palace to administer justice. 12. The emperor did not Speak immediately after listening. The night wind brushed through the remaining embers of Shokang Palace. The spark fell onto his dark-colored sleeve and quickly died out. I lay in his embrace, hearing him let out a soft laugh. That laughter carried not a trace of warmth. Fine. One by one they jumped out. Shen Shuang lay on the ground, eyes filled with despair. She is clearer than anyone else. If the Shen family stays put tonight, perhaps there will be a little room to maneuver. But once the Shen family's private army moves, it would push the entire clan to the edge of the blade. The Empress Dowager suddenly said, "Your Majesty, the Shen family is a century-old aristocratic clan. If you unleash a slaughter tonight, the ministers won't obey you." Father looks at her. Mother Empress still thinks that I need them to obey me. The Empress Dowager's face darkens. The Emperor holds me and turns to climb into the carriage. Return to the Xianming Hall. Summon the ministers of the 6 ministries, the officers of the 3 departments, and the royal princes. Before dawn, I want all of them to kneel in the hall. Feng'an answered the call and immediately went to pass the royal order. I leaned against my father Emperor's chest, fatigue rising in waves. But I did not dare to sleep. Pei Xian was still alive. The Shen family moved. The Empress Dowager didn't give up either. In previous lives, they could drag father into a death trap, not relying on 1 or 2 chess pieces. The carriage road paused midway. The palace corridor suddenly grew quiet in an unsettling way. The front-lanterned eunuch paused in his steps. Feng'an lifted the curtain and glanced outside, his face changing suddenly. "Your Majesty, there is no one on the road." Father pressed me into his embrace. "Stop." The wheels had just stopped, and the surrounding lanterns went out at the same time. Darkness spread like a net, instantly descending. In the next moment, sounds of tearing through the air rang out. Dozens of short arrows shot down from the top of the wall. The royal guards raised shields to protect the chariot. Arrows fell on the shields, dense as a heavy rain. The emperor drew his sword from its sheath, the cold light lighting half of his face. The dead soldiers raised by the Shen family. Feng'an trembled. How did they get into the inner palace? Father Emperor coldly, "Ask the Empress Dowager." The Empress Dowager sat in the back carriage, separated by iron bars, and smiled. "Emperor, the palace city is too big. There are gaps you can never see." Father Emperor no longer pays attention to her. He lowers his head and looks at me. Zhao Zhao closes his eyes. I obediently closed my eyes, but pressed my small hand onto his wrist. "Father Emperor." To the left. The Father Emperor hardly hesitated, drawing his sword with the backhand and stabbing toward the left side of the carriage window. A muffled groan came from outside the window. A man in black rolled off the roof. Feng'an widened his eyes. My father also glanced at me. I tucked myself into his embrace and cried hoarsely, Here's wind." Afraid. Father didn't press the matter, only wrapped me in his cloak. "Be afraid. Then seize me firmly." The sounds of fighting outside the car grow louder. The Imperial army is strong, but there are too many dead soldiers. They risk their lives, recklessly rushing toward the wagon. One person was bound with kerosene and attempted to crash into the axle of the carriage. The black armored guard leaped down from the rooftop and cut off his legs. The oil tank shattered, and tongues of fire climbed along the palace corridor. The horse neighed in fright. The carriage lurched violently. My forehead slammed into my father's chest, and the pain brought tears to my eyes. My father protected me with one hand and cut the reins with the other. "Get off." Feng'an hugged me, then was pushed by his father into the shield wall. "Take her away." I struggled immediately. "Father." The emperor did not look back. "Listen." Feng'an held me and moved me toward the side door. I looked over his shoulder and saw the emperor standing before the firelight, the blade dripping with blood. His old shoulder injury split open even more badly, but he did not retreat a step. Behind the side door was a narrow alley. "Feng'an." Just as he carried me in, suddenly a hand emerged from behind the door and covered his mouth. Feng'an hummed and collapsed. I was caught by another hand. There was a faint medicinal smell on that person. It wasn't Pei Xian, not belonging to Shen Shuang, I opened my eyes wide and saw a stranger old woman's face. She made a shushing gesture at me. Princess, do not fear. Slaves and servants are people left by the former Empress Consort. My heart tightened. People left by my mother. The old woman held me and flew quickly through the passage. The clamor behind us grew fainter. I wanted to call out to my father. But she gently pressed on my lips. There are people guarding His Majesty. They must stay alive in order for them to lose. She led me into an abandoned palace chamber. There were no lights in the chamber. 3 people stood in the corner. One of them was Enrich. One is a drug peddler, who had been previously said to be silenced. Another, wearing old palace-made clothes, holding a bronze box in her arms. Enrich saw me and immediately knelt. Princess, the last letter that the late Empress left for your Majesty has been found. Just as she pushed the bronze box toward me, footsteps came from outside. Not many, only one person. The person trod on a floor of withered leaves, slowly stopping outside the door. A familiar voice rang through the broken door. Zhao Zhao, the imperial uncle has come to pick you up. 13. That outside sound was clear and light, as if crawling in right up to your ear. My body froze. Enrich immediately pressed the copper box into the ashes behind the broken Buddha statue. The old woman stepped back half a step, holding me and pulling my face into her embrace. The peddler of medicine trembled with fear, his teeth chattering as he clenched a half-touched piece of black cloth in his hand. The door panel creaked and was pushed open. Pei Xian stood outside the door. An arrow lodged in his right shoulder. Half of his robe soaked with blood. But he kept smiling. 2 men in black followed him. One of them held a knife, its tip dripping with blood. Pei Xian's gaze swept over the people in the room, finally resting on me. Zhao Zhao really knows how to hide. The old woman fell silent, saying, Your Highness King Qi, the princess is just a child. Pei Xian raised his hand. The man in black kicked at the old woman's knee. The old woman, holding me, knelt down, yet still protected my head with all her might. I cried out in pain, tears bursting forth. And I cried loudly, The Emperor's uncle is bad. Pei Xian walked up to me, bent down and looked at me. With this mouth of yours, you've ruined so many of my plans. But I still can't silence you right now. As he spoke, he reached out and pinched my chin. Her fingertips were cold, and the force was so strong it felt as if it could crush my bones. Enrich pounced over. Don't touch the princess. The man in black swept his blade across. Enrich slammed into the wall, coughing up a mouthful of blood. I cried even harder. Father. Pei Xian's smile deepened. Your father is currently too preoccupied to attend to you. The Shen family's dead soldiers held him back, and the Empress Dowager's people blocked the palace doors. Even if he had wings, he might not be able to find this place immediately. After he finished speaking, his gaze fell on the broken Buddha statue. A corner of a bronze box showed through the ash. He squinted his eyes. Take it out. Xian's face turned pale. Pei Xian did not ask a second time. The man in black grabbed the medic's hair and held a knife horizontally against her neck. The Isis' voice trembled. Behind the statue, Xian's eyes were full of hatred. The bronze box was dug up and handed to Pei Xian. Pei Xian pried open the lock with the tip of his knife. In the box lay an old-fashioned letter, a half-cracked jade carving of a phoenix, and a thin roll of name list. He glanced at it once, and his breath grew heavier. I reached out from the old woman's embrace, pointing at the letter and cried, Mother. Pei Xian fixed his gaze on me. Do you know what this is? I shook my head. Zayas Hazuan's mother. He sneered coldly and unfolded the letter. The paper bore Mother's handwriting. The handwriting was gentle, yet every stroke seemed to hold blood. If there are any changes after I give birth, Your Majesty, do not trust the tang or decoctions from Shokan Palace. If my daughter survives, I hope Your Majesty will keep her away from the Shen family. The phoenix pattern jade can certify that the old edict of that year was a counterfeit. The roster suggests there are doubts about Prince Qi's lineage. Pei Xian's face twisted severely at the end. He clenched the letter in his H. N. Impossible. How would a dying person know all this? Mr. Xin supported himself against the wall and stood up. Your Grace. You knew from the start of their wolfish and wild ambitions. She didn't say it because she feared the throne's foundation was not solid back then. She hid the evidence, hoping for a day to save the princess's life. A cold glint flashed in Pei Xian's eyes. Unfortunately, she couldn't keep herself safe. The Xin family person rushed forward to seize the letter. The man in black kicked her aside. I watched that letter crumple into a ball in Pei Xian's hand. My chest burning as if by fire. That was the last thing mother left for father. It must not be ruined by his hands. I suddenly stopped crying. Pei Xian lowered his head and looked at me. I stretched out my small hand and said in a childish voice, "Uncle." It hurts. He paused for a moment. I pointed to his shoulder. Bleeding. He sneered. Don't try to act innocent. I sobbed and said, the concubine says that when the emperor's younger uncle is in pain, Zhao Zhao will coax him. Pei Xian's eyes slightly changed. He knew I was talking nonsense. Yet there was a moment of distraction. At that moment, the old woman tossed a handful of white ash from her sleeve. The gray powder puffed toward Pei Xian's eyes. Pei Xian roared in anger and turned his head to dodge the strike. The man in black drew his sword and charged forward. The room immediately descended into chaos. Ms. Xin hugged one of the black-clad men's legs, and the old woman pushed me toward the back door to roll away. Pei Xian's reaction was too fast. He closed one eye and grabbed my swaddling clothes with his other hand. The old woman cried out, "Princess!" I was harshly hauled back into his arms. He pinched me with one hand, and swept the copper box into his cloak with the other. Such a faithful servant. Then stay here with her mother and keep her company. The man in black kicked over the oil lamp. Flames licked the dry grass. And in an instant they surge up. Thick smoke rushes in. And I cough until tears stream down my face. Pei Xian carries me as we retreat through the back door into the aisle. Ms. Xin screams my name hoarsely in the glow of the fire. I summoned all my strength and hurled half a phoenix-pattern jade fragment from my sleeve onto the threshold. The fragment landed with a faint, crisp sound. Pei Xian did not turn back. He held me and slipped through the hidden door, coldly saying, "Zhao Zhao, don't keep hoping. When your father emperor finds this place, he will only see a house of ashes." Outside the secret door, a suddenly tearing night sound of the emperor comes through. Pei Xian, leave my daughter behind. 14. Pei Xian's arms suddenly tightened. I was strangled and unable to breathe. The only sound in my ears was his rapid breathing. The firelight outside the secret door flickered, and my father's footsteps drew nearer. Pei Xian looked down at me, his eyes as cold as ice. "Did you leave something behind?" I started to cry immediately. "Does it hurt?" He gripped my face and gritted his teeth, saying, "Are you really a child after all?" I cried hoarse, breathless. "Zhao Zhao wants Father Emperor." Outside, there came the sound of blades clashing. The Emperor was clearly blocked by the man in black. Pei Xian used this moment to drag me deeper into the secret passage. The secret passage was narrow and damp, with old moss covering the walls. Blood kept dripping from his shoulder, leaving a trail of dark red stains on the ground. I looked at the blood, and my heart steadied a little. Father Emperor will chase after me. He will absolutely chase after me. Pei Xian seemed to have thought of this too, and he took out medicinal powder from his sleeve, sprinkling it on the bloodstain. The blood quickly got covered by the gray plaster. He spoke coldly, "Want to leave him a way out?" I curled my neck and stayed silent. He dragged me to the fork. "There is wind on the left, and the sound of water on the right. I don't know which path leads outside the palace, but I know that if the Empress Dowager leaves a way out, she certainly won't choose the path most easy to flood." I hiccup and point to the right. Dark. Great-grandmother walks here. Pei Xian glances at me. He doesn't believe it right away. He reached into his chest and pulled out a bead, tossing it into the passage on the right. The bead rolled for a long time, and finally there was a thud. Indeed, it was a water channel. Pei Xian sneered. Little thing. You still want to fool me. He turned and walked to the left. I immediately cried out loudly. The cry echoed in the dark tunnel, piercingly harsh. He impatiently covered my mouth. Shut up. I bit down hard on his palm. He gasped, nearly dropping me to the ground. You seek death. My mouth was full of the taste of blood. Yet I cried out. Father Emperor. In the distance, an echo faintly sounded. It was as if someone was shouting my name. Pei Xian's expression changed, and his steps quickened. The secret passage ends at a dilapidated well. Beyond the wellhead is not palace walls, but the backyard of an old house. The night is deep, and in the yard there are already horse-drawn carriages at a halt. People from the Shen family stood beside the carriage. The leading middle-aged man wore a dark brocade robe, showing no trace of panic on his face. He frowned when he saw Pei Xian come out in a sorry state. Why did His Highness the Prince bring the princess here? Pei Xian lifted me into his arms. She is my talisman for survival. The person looked at me, a cold glint flashing in their eyes. Keeping the demon child will only bring disaster someday. Pei Xian sneered. If Master Shen has the ability, right now take it from my hands. Master Shen's expression darkened. The person behind him brought a cloak to cover the blood on Pei Xian's shoulder. Someone handed over medicine and a clean horse. I lay on Pei Xian's shoulder and saw a small figure crouching in the corner of the courtyard. Wall. It's a Li. She wore the coarse attire of a palace maid, and her face was smeared with ash. She saw me. Tears suddenly welled up. But she bit her lip hard and made no sound. My heart suddenly warmed. Pei Xian was whispering with Lord Shen in a dispute. How is the Ministry of Justice's side? Master Shen said. We have them surrounded. Just wait for the Empress Dowager to appear, and we can force the 100 officials to jointly petition. Pei Xian snapped. The Empress Dowager has already been confined in the palace. Master Shen's expression finally changed. Then it can't be delayed any longer. The prince takes the princess to the Ministry of Justice for punishment. As long as it is publicly proven that the demon child caused chaos in the palace, His Majesty cannot protect her. Nor can he protect himself. Pei Xian looked at me and suddenly smiled. Okay, then let her say something more useful with her own mouth. I shivered all over. He picked me up and carried me into the carriage, pried open my mouth, and poured a mouthful of bitter medicine into me. The medicinal scent goes down my throat, and my throat immediately feels hot and painful. I want to shout, but I can only emit a broken gasp. Pei Xian looks at me with satisfaction. A talking little monster should learn to keep quiet too. The carriage sped away. Through the gap in the curtain, I saw Ari silently following a few steps and tucking something into the seam of the carriage axle. That was a red thread. The red thread used for the king's cradle game in the palace. The carriage rattled along. My throat was hurting badly, but I stubbornly refused to sleep. Pei Xian leaned against the carriage wall, his complexion growing paler. He had lost too much blood, yet his mind remained clear. He suddenly asked me, "What else did your mother leave behind?" I blinked, not saying a word. He leaned in closer. "If you tell me, I'll let you suffer less." I thought for a moment, and raised my hand to point at the bronze box in his arms. He opened it at once. The letter in the box was still there. The jade piece was still there. And the roster was still there. He turned and turned, but did not find anything else. I whispered hoarsely, almost inaudibly, "Space." Pei Xian's face stiffened. I pointed to the bottom of the copper box and knocked gently. His gaze suddenly sharpened. "There is a layered compartment at the bottom of the box." He drew out a dagger to pry it open. Inside, there was only a small piece of silk cloth. There is no long text on the silk cloth. Only one phoenix seal and one sentence. "The true relic is not in the box, but on Zhao Zhao's body." Pei Xian suddenly looked up at me. The carriage stopped at this moment as well. The sound of the Shen family came from outside. "Your Highness, the Ministry of Justice has arrived." Pei Xian squeezed my neck, his eyes completely crazed. "So the most crucial thing has always been hidden on you." 15. The prison department front was brightly lit. People had gathered beneath the stone steps. There were the private troops of the Shen family, as well as officials invited in the middle of the night. They were dressed disheveled, their faces full of surprise and doubt. Master Shen stood at the doorway and spoke loudly. The concubine has been framed by a demon child. The Empress Dowager is trapped in the palace. The emperor has been bewitched by a young girl. The palace city is in chaos. Someone in the crowd whispered in agreement. There were also people who lowered their heads and dared not speak. Pei Xian carried me off the car. He exposed my face to everyone. There was blood at my temples. My throat couldn't utter a complete sound. And the swaddling on me was torn. But in the Shen family's mouth, none of these were the sufferings I endured. They say I am a harbinger of disaster. They say I will speak and harm the noble consort at 1 year old. Disrupt the palace. And be the source of calamity for kinship. Judge Shen looked at me, his voice even heavier. Everyone, please look. Such a child would not understand jade pendant letters, nor would they be able to identify the prince and concubine. If she is not a demon or evil spirit, then someone is using her to sow chaos at court. Someone hesitated and said, but the injury on the princess's body isn't fake. Sir Shen looked over coldly. If the palace's wet nurse fails to provide proper care, she should be held to account. How can a few bruises determine the guilt of the concubine and the prince? Pei Xian pressed the crossbow against the back of my heart and whispered, cry. My throat hurts terribly, and I can only utter a hoarse whimper. He whispered again. Say you were taught by Feng'an and the Xian family. I opened my mouth. No sound. A look of anger flashed in Pei Xian's eyes. Sir Shen stepped forward to smooth things over for him. At that moment, horse hooves suddenly sounded from the street corner. Everyone turned around. The emperor has arrived. He did not board a carriage. He rode on a horse, his shoulders stained with blood. Behind him were black armor guards and the northern Yamen troops. The torches rushed along from the end of the long street. Like a red dragon, the Sheng family's private soldiers immediately raised their blades. My father emperor turned over from the horse and walked step by step toward the front of the execution department. His gaze fixed only on me. Zhao Zhao. Tears fell from my eyes in an instant. My throat hurt so much that I couldn't call out Father Emperor. Father Emperor's gaze grew colder. Pei Xian. What did you give her? Pei Xian smiled and said, medicine to keep her quiet. Father Emperor halted his steps. The long sword in his hand drooped, the blade tip dripping with blood. Master Shen stepped forward and cupped his fists. Your Majesty, we beg your Majesty to hand over the demon child, release the Empress Dowager and the noble consort, and thoroughly investigate tonight's chaos. The Emperor looks at him. Shen family private soldiers surround the Ministry of Punishments, forcing the officials to gather at night. Are you inviting me, or forcing me? Master Shen's expression remains unchanged. I am for the country and the people. Father Emperor let out a laugh. The Shen family is even worthy to speak of the country and the people. He raised his hand. Black armored guards led a few people forward. One of them was the Shen estate's butler. 2 more were the assassins who had just ambushed the coach. Father Emperor said, in the Shen family's cellar, 300 forbidden crossbows were found. Sangnan village. A private roster of armored soldiers was found. Do you want me to continue reciting it? Your Majesty. Minister Shen's face finally changed. There was a rumor among the officials. Pei Xian lifted me even higher. Brother Emperor, take one more step forward, and I will have her accompany me. Father's footsteps halted. I saw the pain in his eyes, as if forced deep into his bones. I suddenly remembered the words my mother left behind. The true legacy lies on Zhao Zhao's body. But what do I have on my body? This 1-year-old body of mine, besides the scars, has nothing at all. No, there is one more thing. When I woke up from the rebirth last night, I found a layer of extremely hard cloth sewn to the inside of my belly band. At that time I was only worried about hiding the jade pendant, and didn't take a close look. I used all my strength and stretched my little hand into the swaddling clothes, fingernails gripping the edge of the stomach cloth. Pei Xian lowered his head to look, and immediately reached out to grab it. Father Emperor moved at the same instant. He didn't pounce toward Pei Xian, but instead, he hurled the long sword toward the stone lion in front of the punishment department. The blade struck the bronze ring in the stone lion's eye. Sparks splintering. The black-armored guard hidden on the eaves moved with the sound. A fine arrow shot out, hitting Pei Xian's hand as he held the crossbow. The crossbow machine falls to the ground. Pei Xian roars in anger. Another hand clamps around my throat. My vision goes black. But I finally wriggle the lining of my belly band. A sheet of silk as thin as a cicada's wing floats out. The night wind rolled up silks and gauzes, falling at the feet of Father Emperor. Fengman pounced to pick them up, unfolded them. And his whole body stiffened. Your Majesty, this is the Empress Dowager's own blood-written letter. The Emperor took it. He only looked at the first line, and his eyes reddened. Fengman spoke the lines tremblingly for the ministers to hear. If I die, it is not a mandate of heaven. Shokong Palace stores medicine. The Shen family passes cups. Chiwang guards the gate. Also there is slow-acting poison. Not to take a person's life at once, but to corrode the meridians. This poison has already entered your Majesty's habitual tea. If not dispelled within 3 years, it will harm the roots. The surroundings fell deathly silent in an instant. Father Emperor's hand trembled slightly. I was stunned as well. So it turns out Mother not only saved me, she has been saving Her Majesty the Emperor all along. Lord Shen took a sudden step back. Pei Xian's face lost all color. The Emperor raised his eyes and looked at him. Where is the antidote? Pei Xian grit his teeth and did not answer. Father Emperor then looked at Master Shen. Master Shen's forehead beaded with cold sweat. Yet he forced himself to endure. I do not know. At this moment, an elderly voice came from behind the crowd. The antidote is in the Empress Dowager's hands. The crowd parted. Xian Shi was covered in blood, supported by Ali. Walking step by step to the front of the department, she cupped a half-section of phoenix-patterned jade in her hands. Your Majesty, the madam left one more word. If this blood-written letter is seen, the medicine must be fetched before dawn. Otherwise, old poison meeting tonight's arrow wound will enter the heart and vessels. The wound on his father's shoulder is still bleeding. His complexion, under the firelight, is alarmingly pale. Pei Xian suddenly laughed heartily. Your Imperial Highness, see, even if you beat me, you might not live to see daylight. 16. Pei Xian's laughter fell in front of the law department, colder than the night wind. Father Emperor held that piece of silk, his knuckles frighteningly pale. I was choked by Pei Xian, my throat as if filled with embers, only able to emit faint wheezy sounds. Father Emperor looked at me, and the blood in his eyes began to creep up inch by inch. The antidote. Master Shen stepped back half a step, still stubbornly refusing to admit it. Your Majesty, I truly do not know. Father Emperor did not ask a second time. He raised his hand. The black armor guard immediately dragged the Shen mansion butler to the steps. That butler trembled all over, his lips quivering so much that he couldn't even finish begging for mercy. Father Emperor's voice was very soft. I only ask once. And is there a portion of the antidote in the Empress Dowager's hands that the Shen family has hidden somewhere? The butler looked at Lord Shen. Lord Shen spoke sternly. How dare you bite the Shen clan's entire lineage? The moment the words fell, the black-armored guard's blade pressed against the butler's throat. The butler let out a terrible scream. Roger that. Half a pill. In the dark cabinet of the Shen family ancestral hall, Master Shen's face instantly sank pale. Pei Xian also suddenly looked at him. Father Emperor said coldly, take it. A unit from the Northern Yamen army broke off, and immediately rode off toward the Shen residence. Lord Shen suddenly lunged at the butler, as if to stuff his mouth shut, but as soon as he moved, a leg of the black-armored guard stepped on his shoulder. He knelt on the ground, his crown and hat rolling away, so miserable that he had lost all the dignity of a noble clan head. Pei Xian let out a quiet laugh. Brother Emperor, what use is a half pill? Within you lies a 3-year slow-acting poison. And tonight you have been struck by the toxin on the short arrow again. The whole bottle in the Empress Dowager's hand is the true danger. The emperor looks at him. So you still dare to threaten me with Zhao Zhao? Pei Xian shields me with his body. Because I know you won't take the risk. His fingers clenched tighter and tighter. My vision suddenly went black. But I still gripped his sleeve with all my strength. Ari suddenly pounced out from behind the crowd. Princess. She held a small knife in her hand, stabbing straight toward Pei Xian's wounded shoulder. Pei Xian cried out in pain. And his grip loosened for a moment. I fell to the ground. My father almost simultaneously rushed over and took me into his embrace. Pei Xian slapped Ari's face with the back of his hand. Ari tumbled down the stone steps, his forehead bleeding. But she still crawled up and clung to his legs. Your Majesty, run quickly. Pei Xian was furious beyond measure and kicked toward her chest. The emperor held me as he turned. And with a single sword he cut through Pei Xian's Achilles tendons. Pei Xian screamed and fell to his knees. The dagger in his hand still aimed to strike. The black armor guards surged forward, twisting his arms behind his back and pinning them. The emperor held me, his chest heaving violently. I reached out to touch his face. Father. The voice was so rough that it hardly sounded like me. The emperor's eyes reddened. Obedient and well-behaved. Your Majesty is here. But in the next moment, his body suddenly trembled. I smelled a bitter, fishy stench mixed with the blood on his shoulder. Xianshi cried out in alarm. The poison has entered the wound. Feng hurriedly supported His Majesty. Your Majesty. The emperor father pushed him aside. Take Zhao Zhao back to the palace first. I shook my head. Medicine. First the medicine. My father looked down at me, wanting to smile. But he coughed up a mouthful of black blood. All the officials on the field bowed down. Feng was so frightened that his voice changed. Pass the imperial physician to me. Pei Xian knelt on the ground, his face close to the cold stone steps. Yet he smiled tremulously. Your Majesty. Look. You protected her. But you cannot protect yourself. Father Emperor wiped away the blood at his lips. I can protect you. He looked at Lord Shen, who was being restrained. If the Shen family has half a point less, I will cut off one branch of the Shen clan first. At that moment, an urgent report came from the direction of the palace gates. Your Majesty. The Empress Dowager seized the poison vial during the escort. She gave orders to send a message. To see the princess, or she will personally destroy the final antidote. My heart suddenly sank. My father emperor tightened his grip on my arm abruptly. Pei Xian lifted a bloodied face and laughed like a vengeful spirit. Brother emperor, what your Majesty desires has never been for me to continue living. She wants you to kneel and beg her. 17. When the Empress Dowager was dragged back to the Xianming Hall, there was already a line of blue-gray at the horizon. Her hairpin loosened on one side, and her phoenix robe was speckled with ash. Yet she remained upright in the chair. She clenched a small white porcelain bottle in her hand. The bottle neck touched the ground. With a light smash, the emperor's life would be gone. When the emperor was carried into the palace hall, his face was as pale as paper. The imperial physician knelt on the ground. Yet no one dared to reach out and snatch that bottle of medicine by force. The Empress Dowager saw me, and a faint smile slowly curved at the corners of her lips. Give the child to this empress. Father's voice was hoarse. You're dreaming. The Empress Dowager's smile grew deeper. You, Emperor. How long can you hold on? Half an hour. Quarter of an hour. If you collapse, the ministers outside will panic immediately. At that time, who will still protect her? I lay in the embrace of my father, looking at the bottle in the Empress Dowager's hand. She wants me, not just as a hostage. She hates me. Hates me as her mother. Hates me for dragging into the light the dirty matters she has hidden for more than 10 years with her painstaking care. I lightly tugged at my father's sleeve. Zaya's hockey go. The emperor father lowers his head, his eyes as if cut by a blade. Not going. I raise my little arm. The blue-purple wound is still glaring under the lamp. Father is alive. Just beat up the bad guy. Father's Adam's apple rolled heavily. The Empress Dowager watched this scene and sneered. Indeed. Filial piety runs deep between father and daughter. Unfortunately, an emperor should have no soft spots. I turned my head to look at her. Grandmother has none. The Empress Dowager's face cooled. I continued in a raspy little voice, saying, "So the imperial uncle doesn't want you." Those words were like needles, making the Empress Dowager's fingers tremble violently. The white porcelain bottle tapped on the ground with a faint sound. Everyone in the hall held their breath. His Majesty's hand was already resting on the hilt of his sword. But the Empress Dowager quickly steadied herself. A sharp T. Ennui and sharp teeth. Unfortunately, no matter how clever you are, you're still just a child. She looked at her father. Let her come over. Mother AI gives you half a bottle of medicine. The emperor spoke coldly. All of it, the Empress Dowager said. You have no room to bargain. Suddenly, footsteps sounded outside the hall. Black armor guards escorted Pei Xian inside. His Achilles tendon was severed, nearly dragged to the front of the hall. The Empress Dowager saw him covered in blood. Her eyes finally opened for a split second. Xianer. Pei Xian did not look at her. He fixed his gaze on the medicine bottle. His voice hoarse. Mother. Give me the medicine. The Empress Dowager froze. That is a life-saving medicine. Pei Xian laughed. I'm almost dead too. Aren't you the one who hurts me the most? The Empress Dowager's hand holding the bottle gradually tightened. Wait for the emperor to issue the pardon. And I will save you naturally. Pei Xian looked up at her. Hatred fully reflected in his eyes. You're still lying to me up to now. What you want is to seize my royal brother. You want the position of Empress Dowager. I'm just the knife you raised to snatch the throne. The Empress Dowager snapped. Silence. Pei Xian burst into laughter. And as he laughed, he coughed up blood. What are you afraid of? Afraid the officials will know I am not the prince. Afraid the world will know you used a wild born to disturb the great flourishing for over a decade. The hall erupted in an uproar. The Empress Dowager trembled with rage. Raising her hand to smash the bottle, I suddenly broke free from my father's embrace and rolled to the ground. Father Emperor cried out in alarm. Zhao Zhao. I rolled to the edge of the imperial desk, grabbed the golden abacus left from the day of the Zhou decision of the birth order, and hurled it hard toward the Empress Dowager's feet. The counting beads scattered and splashed. One bead struck the Empress Dowager on the wrist. Her hand flicked, and the white porcelain bottle flew from her grip. Feng'an pounced to catch it. An elderly palace made by Empress Dowager caution suddenly drew a hairpin and stabbed Feng'an. Xianshi pounced, shielding Feng'an from that blow. The hairpin's tip pierced her shoulder. Feng'an fell to the ground, but she clung tightly to the medicine bottle in her embrace. The emperor staggered forward and slashed the old palace maid's wrist with a sword. The Empress Dowager cried sharply. Get it back. The hall instantly descended into chaos. Pei Xian seized the opportunity and charged at Feng'an. His legs were already useless, but he still charged forward with his shoulders like a mad dog. The medicine bottle rolled to in front of me. I stretched out my little hand to grab it. The Empress Dowager pressed down on the back of my hand with one foot. Intense pain erupts in an instant. I can't even cry out. Fath. Er's eyes flare with murderous intent. Let her go. The Empress Dowager bent down and picked up the medicine bottle again. She looked at me trembling with pain, and smiled softly. Just like your mother. Everyone thinks a letter and a piece of jade can turn the world upside down. The emperor drew his sword and rushed forward. But the Empress Dowager raised the medicine bottle above the candle. Take one more step. I, the sorrowful queen, will have you and your father and daughter die together. 18. The candle flame licks at the bottom of the white porcelain bottle. The Empress Dowager's wrist is very steady. She looked at her father emperor without a trace of panic in her eyes. Kneel. You kneel and beg the concubine, and I shall grant you a mouthful of medicine. Father stands in place. The blood on his shoulder has soaked through half of his sleeve. His face is so pale it's terrifying, but a cold smile slowly curls at the corner of his lips. Do you deserve it? The Empress Dowager's eyes suddenly turned cold. She pushed the medicine bottle a little closer to the flame. The bottle hissed softly as it was warmed by the fire. The chief imperial physician in the palace turned pale. Your Majesty. We must not delay any longer. If this medicine is destroyed, the old toxin will be hard to reverse. Feng'an held Lady Xian, crying with tears streaming down his face. Blood spilled across Xian's shoulder. Yet she still fixed her gaze on the bottle in the Empress Dowager's hand. We must not let her ruin the medicine. Your Majesty fought with all her might to leave this line of life back then. The dorsum of my hand went numb from the Empress Dowager's press. Pain gnaws at my bones in waves. I bite my lip and don't cry out again. I know that the more I cry, the happier she is. The Empress Dowager lowers her head and looks at me. Why aren't you crying? Weren't you very good at acting pitiful just now? I raised my head, hoarse, and said, Grand Empress Dowager is afraid. The Dowager Empress narrowed her eyes. I continue. You fear Father Emperor living. You fear the imperial uncle dying. You fear that no one will shield you from the blade again. Pei Xian lay on the ground, his face suddenly turning pale. The Empress Dowager sneered. Am I afraid? Who in this grand Qing palace would dare make me afraid? I looked at Pei Xian. Prince Uncle, she won't give you medicine. She wants you dead. Pei Xian's fingers dug into the floor tiles. There was still blood at the corner of his mouth. But hatred flickered in his eyes. Mother, give me the medicine. The Empress Dowager did not look at him. Shut up. Pei Xian laughed softly. The laugh was low and hoarse, as if ground from the chest cavity. You're still the same. When you want me to be obedient, call me Xiener. If I'm no longer useful, tell me to shut up. The Empress Dowager snapped. You've fallen to this extent today, and you still have the face to blame me. Pei Xian props himself up on his arms and crawls forward. His Achilles tendon was severed, and with every movement a trail of blood was dragged along. But he still crawled toward the Empress Dowager's feet. I failed because you lied to me. You said I was destined by fate. You said that chair should have been mine. You said His Highness the Emperor is nothing more than a puppet. You raised. He looked up, and his eyes were red to the point of frightening. But what am I in the end? The palace fell utterly quiet, save for the faint crackle of the candle wick exploding. The Empress Dowager finally looked at him. You are the son of this mourning family. Pei Xian laughed even harsher. But I am not of royal blood. A stifled breath swept through the officials. The Empress Dowager's fingers tightened, and the porcelain bottle tapped softly against the bronze candlestick. My father the Emperor's gaze instantly sank. The black-armored guards stepped forward half a pace in unison. The Empress Dowager immediately raised the bottle of medicine higher. Retreat. Father Emperor raised his hand, and everyone stopped. I seized the golden thread on her skirt with the other hand the moment she raised it. The golden thread wound around a small jade pendant. I remember that jade pendant. In the previous life, the Empress Dowager also wore it at the longevity banquet. After Pei Xian drank the celebratory wine, the Empress Dowager personally poured out a pill from the jade pendant and fed it to him to calm his nerves. At that moment I was kneeling outside the hall, only able to see a small white pill from a distance. I don't know if that was the antidote, but a person like the Empress Dowager would never place all her last resort in a single bottle. I grab the golden thread and yank it downward with all my might. The golden thread bites into my palm, pain making me see stars. The jade pendant falls to the ground with a loud crack. The Empress Dowager's expression finally changed. She instinctively looked down. Father Emperor saw it too. I summoned all my strength and shouted, Father Emperor, Chuizi. The Empress Dowager lifted her foot, ready to crush the jade pendant. Pei Xian was faster than her. He suddenly pounced, tightly grabbing the Empress Dowager's ankle with both hands. The Empress Dowager stumbled a step. The white porcelain bottle in his hand tilted away from the candle flame. The Emperor's figure was like a bolt of lightning. His long sword swept horizontally, cutting through the copper candlestick. The candlestick toppled over, and the flames were extinguished by Feng'an. The black-armored guards charged forward in unison. The Empress Dowager unexpectedly drew a thin hairpin from her sleeve and stabbed it hard toward Pei Xuanho's neck. Pei Xianho grunted, still not loosening his grip. Mother, you really want me dead? The Empress Dowager's eyes were filled with cold light. Useless. If I had known you were so useless, I shouldn't have kept you back then. Pei Xian froze in place. In the next instant, he suddenly burst into laughter. With his last bit of strength, he reached back and seized the Empress Dowager's wrist. The white porcelain bottle was torn by the two of them and flew into the air. Father Emperor extended his hand to catch it. The Empress Dowager spoke sternly. Ruin it. A dark shadow suddenly fell from the beam. The man had been hiding behind the beam the whole time. His short blade in his hand slashed straight at the medicine bottle. Father Emperor did not have time to turn around. I lay on the ground, watching the cold gleam move closer and closer to the bottle. A shattered shout squeezing from my throat. Don't. Just as the short blade was about to fall, Mrs. Xin suddenly pushed Feng aside, dragging her severely injured body and lunging forward. She used her back to block that slash. The medicine bottle fell, and Father Emperor caught it steadily. Xin also fell to the ground, the blood spreading rapidly beneath her. The Father Emperor immediately threw the medicine bottle to the imperial physician. Test. The imperial physician hurriedly unscrewed the stopper, just sniffing it once. His complexion changed. Your Majesty, the bottle does not contain the antidote. Is Tuan my poison? The Empress Dowager suddenly laughed. That laugh was sharp and carefree. Emperor, you really dare to believe me? My emperor's face darkened. The imperial physician hurriedly picked up the jade pendant again. The pendant has already cracked. A wax-sealed pill rolled out from inside. The imperial physician scraped off the wax shell, his fingertips trembling. This is the antidote. Feng was overjoyed. Serve your Majesty immediately. The Empress Dowager suddenly looked up, and a strange smile flashed in her eyes. Too late. That medicine can only suppress the old poison. Tonight, the poison must be combined with another medicine in the heart. Her imperial father looked at her coldly. Where is it? The Empress Dowager slowly turned her head and looked toward outside the hall. Inside Shen Shuang's abdomen. 19. After the Empress Dowager's words fell, the hall seemed iced over with frost. Shen Shuang was dragged along the corridor, and upon hearing her name, she lifted her head abruptly. Her subordinate subconsciously protected her abdomen, and there was no longer a single trace of color on her face. Father Emperor held the sword, his voice cold and hoarse. You still want to hold a life not yet born to threaten me? The Empress Dowager smiled. The Emperor is benevolent. Your Majesty, I understand. So I hid the final medicine in the place you would least want to touch. The imperial physician knelt on the ground, his forehead covered in sweat. Your Majesty, if it is truly red lotus 0 Qilian Yin, it does not necessarily have to harm the fetus. To be on daily medication for the Empress's concubine in the past 2 months would allow the to enter the bloodstream. Take 3 drops of fingertip blood, combine with wax pellets and decoct. Or it may suppress the toxin. The Empress Dowager's smile faded at once. Father Emperor bowing his head to me. My hand back swelled purple, throbbing with sharp pains. He handed me over to Feng, peeling off his outer robe to wrap me up. Transmit Shen Shuang. When Shen Shuang was dragged into the hall, her knees scraped along the tiled floor. She saw the Empress Dowager again, and then the sword in her father's hand. Suddenly she cried and crawled forward. Your Majesty, I am willing to shed blood. Please spare my life. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager spoke sternly. Idiot, Shen Shuang cried, her face wet with tears. Your Majesty Empress Dowager, at this point, do you still want me to die for you? Prince Qi does not want me. And the Shen family can't protect me. My child in my womb. You have always treated me as just a medicine. Pei Xian was pinned to the corner of the hall, and upon hearing these words, his face turned ashen. He looked at Shen Shuang's abdomen. In his eyes there was hatred, and also an indescribable confusion. The Empress Dowager coldly said, do you think that giving blood will make the Emperor spare you? Shen Shuang trembled all over, yet remained bowed on the ground. Your Majesty may judge me, may depose me, may imprison me, but there are still reckless children in the Shen family. My only plea is that your majesty punish me according to the crime and do not implicate the innocent. The emperor looked at her with no trace of pity. Did you ever think that Zhao Zhao is just an ignorant child who doesn't understand? Shen Shuang's cry halted. I lay in Feng En's arms, whispering, "It hurts." The emperor's eyes grew even deeper. Shen Shuang seemed drained by this one word, collapsing to the ground and kowtowing repeatedly. Your Majesty's subject, was wrong. Your Majesty's subject, truly was wrong. The imperial physician dared not delay and stepped forward to draw blood immediately. When the silver needle pierced Shen Shuang's fingertip, she trembled with pain. 3 drops of blood fell into the jade cup, the color darker than ordinary blood. The imperial physician scraped away the wax seal and blended the blood into the medicine. Everyone in the inner hall fixed their eyes on that small medicinal stove. The stove fire flickered up and down, as if to roast each person's life on it. The Empress Dowager suddenly burst into laughter. You are still too naive, Emperor. She is willing to give her blood because she doesn't know either. The crimson lotus has already been cut off by the sorrowful lady long ago. The imperial physician's hand trembled. Shen Shuang suddenly turned around. What did you say? The Empress Dowager slowly said. Ever since you became pregnant with that monstrous child, I have added a sedative to the anti-medical medicine to prevent miscarriage. The blood in your abdomen can hang a life, but it cannot save a life. Shen Shuang's face turned deathly pale, and suddenly she clutched her lower abdomen and dropped to the ground. The emperor's face darkened for a moment. Feng En exclaimed, Your Majesty. I suddenly looked toward the Empress Dowager. She sat in the center of the chaos, smiling like a broken Buddha. I've already said so. Without my nod, no one will live to dawn. Xian stood in the pool of blood, then suddenly raised a hand with difficulty. Princess. Her voice was so soft it almost faded into the wind. Feng Yu. I was stunned. Feng En immediately drew that half-cut phoenix pattern jade from his bosom. Xian sighed, panting, and said intermittently, The other half. In the princess's bellyband interlayer. Your Highness fears the jade pendant will be snatched away. So she ground the true medicine into powder and hid it in the jade seam. I immediately lowered my head to tug at the torn swaddling. Arisa pounced, kneeling in front of me, carefully untying the inner side of the belly sash. A thin piece of phoenix patterned jade slid out from the interlayer. Within the jade piece's crack, there was indeed a line of red powder. The imperial physician nearly crawled over in a rush. He joined 2 pieces of phoenix jade together, then used a silver knife to scrape off the jade seam medicinal powder. The Empress Dowager's laugh suddenly ceased. She suddenly stood up. Impossible. How could that BTCH defend herself this far? Father Emperor looked up, his voice terrifyingly soft. Because she is cleaner than you, and smarter than you. The medicine was finally brewed. The imperial physician carried it to the emperor, his hand shaking so badly that it almost spilled. But the emperor looked at me first. Have Zhao Zhao examined? The imperial physician was startled. The emperor said sincerely, I trust what she left behind, but I do not trust a single hand in this hall. The imperial physician hurriedly tested the medicine with silver needles, and also tried it on lab mice. After a moment, he knelt and wept openly. Your Majesty. It can be taken. Father Emperor took the medicine cup and drank it in one gulp. Everyone in the hall held their breath. I tightly held onto Feng En's sleeve. The emperor stood for a moment, then suddenly spit out a mouthful of black blood. The blood splattered on the golden bricks, a foul stench stinging the nose. His body swayed and he toppled straight down. I cried out to him, Father. The Empress Dowager suddenly threw back her head and laughed. It's late. 20. When Father Emperor collapsed, the entire Xianming Hall was in chaos. The imperial physicians rushed over to diagnose his pulse, and Feng En cried so hard he nearly couldn't stand. I wriggled free from Li's arms, rolled and crawled to my father's side. Father Emperor had his eyes closed, lips dark and bruised, yet his palms still clenched the blood-stained silk cloth. I lay on his chest and heard an even lighter beating inside. Beat! Another beat. I turned back immediately. Voice hoarse. Not dead. The imperial physician was startled awake by these two words. Hurriedly bending down to examine again. His face first turned pale. Then he suddenly kowtowed. Your Majesty's poisonous blood has been vomited. There is more pulse. Quick acupuncture. The Empress Dowager's laugh stopped. Father Emperor was helped to the side couch. A single silver needle falls. And sweat beads drip onto the ground from the imperial physician's forehead. The outside of the hall, the daylight is growing brighter. When the first ray of dawn shone in, the emperor finally cleared his throat. That sound was very soft. Yet it caused the entire hall to bow in reverence. Feng'an cried out, "Your Majesty has woken up." Father Emperor slowly opened his eyes. His gaze swept over everyone. Finally coming to rest on me. Zhao Zhao. Tears suddenly welled up in my eyes. Father. He tried to raise his hand to touch me, but he had no strength. I leaned my face forward, softly pressing it against his palm. My emperor's hands are freezing, yet he's alive. That's enough. The Empress Dowager sat back in the chair, an expression finally returning to her face. She looked as if she had aged 10 years overnight. The emperor looks at her. Mother, do you have any other means? The Empress Dowager falls silent for a moment. Then suddenly smiles. The emperor's decree is decisive. His Majesty spoke softly. It is not that I am favored by fate. It is the Empress who protected me. The Empress Dowager's face grew ugly. The Emperor Father closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, there was already the cold of an emperor in his gaze. Proclaim the decree. Feng'an immediately knelt up straight. The emperor spoke word by word. The Empress Dowager is stripped of her honor, relocated to the cold palace. And no outsider may see her without an imperial decree. Prince Qi Pei Xian usurps the throne, imprisoning in the heavenly prison. The three ministries hold a joint trial. Shen Shuang is demoted to a commoner, sent to the heavenly prison. The head of the Shen clan privately keeps armored soldiers, besieges the Ministry of Justice, and is sent to the imperial prison. The remaining people, according to the severity of their crimes, will be tried and judged one by one. All the court officials replied in unison. The Empress Dowager's face finally changed. You dare to depose my mother's honor. Father Emperor said calmly. I not only dare to depose, I shall have the archivists write it all down. Line by line. Write about how you harmed the Empress. Write about how you hid drugs. Write about you trampling an innocent child under your feet. The Empress Dowager glared at me suddenly. The hatred in her eyes was like a venomous snake spitting foulness. Father Emperor raised his han. And the black armor guards immediately blocked her view. Take her away. When the Empress Dowager was dragged away, she did not scold again. She only paused briefly as she passed by Pei Xian. Pei Xian looked up at her. Mother. Save me. The Empress Dowager lowered her head to look at him. Her gaze cool as if she were looking at a broken object. You're completely useless. Pei Xian was stunned. In the next moment, he suddenly strained as if driven mad. You've lied to me for a lifetime. You'll only think of yourself until you die. The Empress Dowager did not look back. Pei Xian's shout was cut off by the palace door. Shen Shuang collapsed on the ground, tears still wet on her face. She saw Father Emperor wake up, then saw the Empress Dowager being carried away. And she suddenly crawled in front of me. Princess. Zhao Zhao. It was my fault. I shouldn't have hit you. I shouldn't have harmed you. You should plead to His Majesty on my behalf for a favor. I look at her. The vines in the side palace of the former life. The cold lake when it fell into the water. The blood at the throat when poisoned. And the wind on the snowy night in the border town all rushing back in an instant. I whisper. It hurts. Shen Shuang nods through her tears. I know. I shake my head. You don't know. Her reaching hand freezes midair. The emperor spoke coldly. Take them away. When Shen Shuang was dragged away, the golden hairpin fell from her hair and rolled to the edge of the red carpet. That red carpet is the one I laid out on the baby's first month celebration. The hall remained full of gold and jade. The imperial seal, the wolf hair brush, the golden abacus, the short bow, The tiger Tally each lay quiet and in place. But after a night had passed, everything had changed. Father commanded Feng to carry me to his side. He leaned on the couch, his face still pale. Yet he reached out and drew me into his arms. Zhao Zhao has suffered. I grabbed his lapel and finally dared to cry out loud. Father Emperor also suffers. Father Emperor was silent for a long time. His chin gently pressed against the top of my head. It won't be painful anymore. Outside the palace hall, a guard suddenly came to report. Your Majesty, there is an urgent report from the Tiankong. Qi Wang hit the wall in prison and did not die. He said he wants to meet the princess. If the princess refuses to go, the secret left by the Empress Dowager will never be known by anyone. The Emperor's gaze turned cold. I slowly lifted my head. I know Pei Xian is trying to fool me again. But I also know that perhaps he truly still holds the last thorn in his hand. Father whispered. Don't go. I look at him. Go. Zhao Zhao is not afraid. 21. The prison cell was cold and damp. Father Emperor originally did not want me to come. But I seized his sleeve and kept saying over and over that I must go. In the end he personally carried me, followed by 3 layers of black armored guards. Before stepping onto that long stone corridor, Pei Xian was locked in the deepest place. His Achilles tendon was severed. A blood-stained bandage wrapped around his shoulder, and his whole body seemed as if its bones had been drawn out. Yet when he saw me, he still smiled. Zhao Zhao. The Emperor's arm tightened at once. Speak up if you have something to say. Pei Xian did not look at the Emperor. He only fixed his gaze on me. You're not an ordinary child. His Majesty's eyes suddenly chilled. I lay on His Majesty's shoulder, quietly watching Pei Xian. Pei Xian's smile was hoarse. A 1-year-old child. How would he know about the jade pendant, secret passage, and poison? Did you perhaps have already seen all of this? The torches in the prison crackled with a light popping sound. Father did not ask me. He just held my hand more steadily. She is my daughter. That will do. A smile froze on Pei Xian's face. He originally wanted to pierce through my final defense with this sentence. But his father error didn't give him the chance. A trace of malice finally surfaced in Pei Xian's eyes. Brother Emperor, you will regret it. She could destroy me at 1 year old. And she could destroy you in the future as well. My father spoke lightly. If there comes a day when I should be destroyed, you need not concern yourself. Pei Xian gritted his teeth and suddenly spit out a small parchment roll sealed with wax from his chest. The black-armored guard immediately stepped forward to take it. Feng started to move, and his expression changed after a single glance. Your Majesty. This is a corner of the border defense map. Pei Xian smiled. The Shen family has long had reliable information with the northern barbarians. If I succeed tonight, they will worship me as their lord. If I fail, the 3 border cities will be attacked. Brother, can you protect the palace? Can you protect the world? Father Emperor took that corner of the blueprint, his face turning completely grim. Pei Xian stared fixedly at him. Release me. I know where the entire map is. Father looked at him for a long time, then suddenly said, You don't know. Pei Xian froze. The Emperor said, If you had known, you wouldn't have exchanged a corner of blueprint for your life. You only know that the Shen family has a way. But you don't know who holds the way. A look of embarrassment flashed across Pei Xian's face. I gently tugged at my father's robe. Ah Li. Father looked down at me. I whispered, Red string. Yesterday, after Ai Li stuffed the red thread onto the wagon axle, a mark was inevitably left along the entire road. She can chase to the old mansion, and may also see more. Father Emperor immediately said, Summon Ai Li. Ai Li was soon brought in. Her forehead was still bandaged, and her body trembled as she knelt. Your Majesty, I, a servant, heard the Shen family mention a place last night when I followed the carriage. They said the entire map was not in the mansion, but under the scripture cabinet at the White Horse Temple in the western part of the city. Pei Xian's face changed abruptly. The Emperor looks at him. It seems that your final secret is not yours either. Pei Xian lunged toward the iron bars. You cannot kill me. I am the Empress Dowager's son. My father's imperial voice turned cold. Even this is fake for you. Pei Xian seemed shattered by these words. The whole person collapsing back into his seat. Father Emperor did not look at him again. He hugged me and turned away. A hoarse shout came from behind him. Zhao Zhao. Who are you really? I did not look back. Who I am is not important. What matters is that in this life I am alive. And the Emperor Father is alive as well. 3 days later, under the cabinet at the White Horse Temple, a complete defense diagram was found. Along with secret letters between the Shen family and the northern border Hu tribes. The head of the Shen family confessed his guilt in the imperial prison. The main branch of the Shen clan was judged according to the law, while those in the collateral branches who were not implicated were banished 3,000 li. The deposed consort Shen Shuang fell gravely ill in the celestial prison. The child in her womb could not be saved. The emperor, after listening, remained silent for a moment and ordered the imperial physicians to treat her according to the usual procedures. He did not forgive her, nor did he humiliate her. On the day the case was concluded, Shen Shuang was granted 3 feet of white silk rope. Before her death, she wanted to see me. Father Emperor did not permit it. He said Zhao Zhao need not meet the people who hurt her anymore. The Empress Dowager was moved to the cold palace. The day she entered the palace, she still held herself with airs, ordering palace servants to light the lamp for her. There are no palace servants in the cold palace like those in Shokang Palace. There is no one to call her Empress Dowager mother anymore. After half a month, she went mad in the cold palace. Every day she held an empty ceramic bottle, saying that Xianer would come to take her. Pei Xian went to the execution ground before her. On the day of the execution, the sky hung low and dark. Father did not let me go to watch. After returning to the palace, he held me and stood in front of Xianming Hall watching the rain for a long time. Zhao Zhao, are you scared? I shake my head. Father is here. He lowered his head and smiled. That was the first time since my rebirth that I saw him smile like a real father. Later, the red mat in Zhuaming Hall was taken away. My father commanded someone to set out the items for the Zhozhou the Comingafage ceremony again. This time there was no Shen Shuang in the palace, no Empress Dowager, and no Pei Xian. Only Father, Feng'an, Ali, and Xian Shi, who had been saved by the imperial physician. Father placed me at the end of the red felt. Zhao Zhao, what would you like to take this time? I slowly crawl over. The imperial seal is in the middle. The wolf hair brush is on the left. The golden abacus is on the right. The short bow and the tiger amulet still remained. I reached out and picked up that wolf hair brush. Father Emperor froze for a moment. I thrust the wolf hair brush into his hand, and then grabbed his fingers. Right. The Emperor Father crouched down. Right what? I thought for a long time. In a childlike voice. Mother. His Majesty's eyes instantly reddened. He picked me up and walked to the imperial desk. That day, he personally wrote the edict exonerating the queen of the wrongful case. And he also wrote my name. Pei Zhao. He tells the world that I am not a disaster. I am the only cherished jewel he has with the Empress. Many years later, I will still dream of the snow on that night in the border town. When Pokemon wake up, there is always a lamp by the bed. There is the shadow of the Emperor Father approving documents under the lamp. And Ari quietly helps tuck me in. Delicate and careful. I finally don't have to die alone in the wind and snow. In this life, I seized the Emperor's dragon robe, and I seized my own fate.